Cool. Let's pop out the chat. I'll put the link in there. And then I'll put a link in playtesting as well. And then I will minimize. And how do I pop the chat out? There it is. Cool. And cool. All right. There we go. Hi, Panza. How are you? Let's check my list here. Okay, I've got to do that later. I've got to do recordings. Do that later. I got a lot on my plate here, it seems. AI, army compositions, loot generation, gun prices, items, melee stats, accuracy, cavalry. There's a lot of things we could work on. A lot of choices. I'll let you guys decide what we should prioritize because we could actually do quite a few different things. I'll list out what I want to change. There's one thing I want to do with releasing music from Fire Maneuver on YouTube. Go to Jacob Gullion, his YouTube account, and I believe he's uploaded on Spotify and on YouTube a bunch of the music. Alrighty. Let's see what we want to prioritize. So what we've got to do is I want to price guns. That's easy. I want to update AI army compositions. That's a bit harder. I want to redo the item effects, and that's hard, but it's fun for the most part. I wouldn't even say hard then. I'll say medium. By item effects, I mean like what do items do in the game and rebalancing them. We need to debuff cavalry a bit. We need to debuff like heavy units, charge, and melee stats. These kind of go together though. So why don't I just say like a unit balance pass. I think that's like medium hard. Let's see what else I have written here. I've done new gun stats. That part's done. I can localize them. I don't need to do that yet. Oh, and then loot balance for battles. And I'd say that's like medium. So these are the things that we can do. Maybe we'll get them all done today. Maybe we'll get everything finished and it's all going to magically get done. But yeah, that's what I want to get done. Debuff all cavalry. I did buff the provincial cavalry, actually. It is just the issue is when you get like a cuirassier and you stack 4 or 5 items on top of them, and then you give them a really good sword, they'll get like 140 charge damage and they'll touch something and it dies. That's not good. The provincial cavalry is pretty weak, I would say. In fact, recruits and provincial cavalry are both weak. I don't really need to make the lowest tier of unit any worse. It's the same thing with like cannons. Like the lowest caliber cannon kind of sucks, but the highest caliber cannon gets like 200 kills a shot. So I don't want to bring down the cheap units or the bad units, but I do want to bring down the high tier units because I think one issue I tend to have is like you'll have like a recruit, and if you have something like morale, melee, range, or like we'll say accuracy, speed or something, you know, my temptation, if I see a musketeer and a recruit, you know, if that recruit is at, let's say 10, 10, 10, and 10, my natural inclination is to go, oh, okay, let's give him a big morale buff. And then, you know, he should be better at melee if he's a musketeer and probably better at accuracy and probably better at speed. But then you just did like, it doesn't seem that extreme, but if you do this every step of the way, and let's say there's 4 units you can promote into, by the time you're done, you've got like 40 morale. And then you take a unit like this and give it items, and then plus it will get veterancy. And now this is at like 80 to 100, and you're 10 times the strength. But I don't think any, yeah, the hyper cranked high units, that's pretty much what it is that you can snowball units like outrageously at the moment. And we just have to slow that down. Just like make it, what if going from recruit to musketeer, the morale goes up, but maybe your melee and accuracy are the same, or maybe even the speed, but perhaps it's even just the accuracy that's up to 15. And it's like, okay, yeah, well, the melee is the same, but because you have higher morale, it means you can last in melee much longer, and if you can last in melee much longer, you will beat a recruit. So you don't need to dump this stat up if you want to make, like, this morale already succeeds at making them better in melee. So things have knock-on effects, basically. Yeah. I know, OH, you're advocating for the cuirass plates being equipable on infantry. That's never going to happen. It's just not. Because anything you allow, the AI should be able to do too. And if you allow the AI to equip breastplates, they're going to start putting breastplates on all their units at the end of the game, and I don't like that. Like, you can't point me to a single case in the entire 18th century where musketeers are going in with breastplates. And so if that's not the case, then the AI should not be able to use them, and if the AI can't use them, the player should not be able to do that either. That's my opinion on that. In terms of gun picks and tompions, I don't hate that they're mutually exclusive. It's just, I think it should probably be clearer. In the tooltip, they should both be called gun tools, and you can only equip one gun tool. But this is the very thing I'm have it taking an issue with. If you can stack gun picks, and you can stack tompions, and you can stack cuirass breastplates on infantry, and they're getting stat buffs, now you've just basically got infantry cavalry with 100 stat across the board. But that's not the type of game that I'm trying to make. I think that more items should probably come with trade-offs, and the benefits that you get should be less extreme. Anyways, in terms of where we should start, I'm curious which one of these you guys think would be more interesting to tackle first. They're all equally as important, but I'm curious if any of these jump out at you. Because I'm probably going to have more people now than I will 4 hours from now, so I'll save the boring stuff for when it's 4 hours from now. So we have pricing guns, it's pretty easy. Updating the AI army compositions, it's a little harder. Redo the item effects, that's kind of medium. A unit balance pass, that's medium hard. And then a loot balance pass of like what kind of loot you get from battles. I'd probably save this at the end because we haven't done the items yet. So you can't do the loot if you haven't done the items. And then I would say the unit balance pass can happen whenever we want. Items can happen whenever we want, pretty much. Enemy army compositions you don't want to do until you've probably done the units, so you know what's strong and what's not. So that should kind of go there. And then pricing guns is like such an easy thing. So here's what we'll do. We'll knock this out because this will take me 5 minutes, literally. And then you guys are saying items or units. So I think we'll then hit units and then we'll hit items afterwards. I think we'll do it in this order, and then we'll save these at the end. So let's go knock out guns real quick. And all we got to do is jump in to the item sheet. Give me 1 second. I have to send a text out. Okay, let's go to firearms. And these are our firearms. I've rebalanced many of them. Oh, I don't know why my phone is so damn loud. There we go. Turn it off. So these are the different weapons we have, and the color designates where its strengths and weaknesses lie. So Potsdam is really good at reload and effective range, but its maximum range is lower and its accuracy is lower. So this means you need to get up close. And once you do get up close, the damage drop-off isn't as extreme. Like, it's easier to maintain higher levels of damage. You don't have to get super close. And you can reload quite quickly. And the Prussians naturally reload quickly, and they're fast. So this just means you can close in quickly, but you don't need to charge. You just need to get up close and just shoot somebody at point blank, basically. Britain's got kind of a similar thing going on. They have a good effective range, but their accuracy is higher. So they're not focusing on reloading quickly and dumping volleys quickly. It's still about getting close and then delivering one big punishing volley rather than getting close and hitting somebody 3 times and making them run. But you also don't even really have the option of melee quite as much with the British weapon. Whereas with the Prussian, you're good at melee or charge attack. There's no debuff. You can close in after a few shots. With Britain, you probably don't want to get into a prolonged melee. You might want to do one big charge when you're ready, but you don't want to stay there for long based on the weapon you're using. You can, of course, swap your weapons out. The John Coping is like an extreme weapon. That's why it's got a really dark charge attack here. But it's bad at reload and range. So you can't shoot very far. You got to get up close. You're not going to be able to fire many times. You can only probably fire once. And then when you charge, you get a massive buff. So it's kind of like a Gaupaw weapon in a way. Delft is kind of just in a weird spot where it's like it reloads quickly, so it's kind of like the Potsdam. It also has good effective range, also like the Potsdam, but it's really bad at accuracy and charging. So it's kind of like the Potsdam with less flexibility in its melee capabilities, but you're still able to reload it quickly. You don't lose the range. So if you don't like how with the Prussian musket you have to get closer, but you don't have to get that close now. And when the range you are at has good effective range, so you don't have to stand too close to them, but the accuracy is a little lower. Yeah. OH says, I'm not buying guns, but that's because all the encounters provide too many. Yeah, that's a bug, so that's not... yeah, that's not intended. You suggest reducing all gun costs to 100 from 120. Yeah, I agree. I was about to say we should start reducing all the gun costs. So I'm going to go check firearms, which is where I think the prices are currently. And we can check out the... Is reload time correct? It is. Good. The prices. So... Almost all guns here are listed at 100. I almost feel like carbines, it should be almost reversed. Like a musket version should be 120 and the carbine should be 100 because the carbine's a little less useful. It's shorter. So that's kind of where I stand. And in terms of the actual price, how much you're willing to pay for a basic weapon, I would say I'd be willing to pay like 100 for a basic weapon and only 80 for the carbine. That's like really you're only buying a basic weapon if you just need to make a swap because you don't like the current stats you have. The true weapons you're going to save up and actually truly buy are like refined or good and excellent quality weapons. And these are a little bit too pricey. But I'd say the basic tier, you're rarely like going out and buying basic tier weapons. It's just if you want to swap it out. Maybe you want that John Coping just for your charging oriented unit. And you probably, I could buy an item for 80 that's going to give me charge damage. So why would I buy the gun for 100? So I'd probably make these basics like 80 and the carbine 60. And what this also means is when you get a ton of guns early game as loot, you can't sell them to make a massive profit right off the bat. So it actually helps the economy run a little bit better and makes swapping weapons easier. So it's a win-win in my opinion in that regard. A rustic musket, training muskets by the way are worth 0 because you can't buy them, you can't sell them, you can't even remove them from the unit. So they should be listed at 0. A rustic musket is the basic one that you have equipped by default. That one I almost think needs to go down to like 25 because they're purely to sell them off. And they're almost useless, so I think they should be 25. I mean, technically, well, no, they're pretty bad. I'm trying to think. I could just make them 30. I think 35 is a little high, but yeah, I'll just go 30. Less guns and more bayonets. Yeah, I've rebalanced it. I'm going to show you guys real quick because I know... Let me just pause because I spent an enormous amount of time rebalancing the loot for the... what's it called? The loot for the item drops in towns. I've spent a lot of time on that. I don't know where I put a picture. Oh, I put a picture of my change logs. But I've done that, so let me show you what I've done. For smooth bores, length of the barrel doesn't really matter for accuracy. It's quite the opposite. That's why muskets got shortened commonly and skirmishers use carbines. Yeah, I found it doesn't matter too much as well. Length of the musket only plays a role in melee, yeah. I think for gamification purposes, though, I'm fine to reduce the accuracy a little bit on carbines. For gamification. Otherwise, they do have worse melee stats, and they reload quicker, because it's easier, the weapon's shorter. But yeah, your range and accuracy is only slightly lower than a musket. It's not very extreme. But you do reload much quicker. I think that's good for gamification. Mr. Haddado, in terms of the release date, I can pretty much guarantee you it'll be October 27th. I have no issues with that date at the moment. I have no issues with that. It's later. If anything, it's later than I would have wanted to release. But there's like no release dates available. There's so many games coming out that there are so few days. I could release this game realistically like October 1st. We'll be ready to release it. I can't. The only reason it's getting delayed that extra full month of October is there's not a single day you can put it out without 60 games coming out or a massive sale that shuts down all new games allowed to come out or a big Next Fest demo thing. It's just it is so difficult to pick a release date. October's absolutely packed. The smarter thing would be to actually release in like January at this rate, but I don't want to push the game off that far because there's just no dates left. But I'll show you what we've got, and you guys can tell me if you like what we have for I think I broke it. Hold on. I have to rebuild items again, I think. Oh, geez. Yeah. If we ever get this error, it just means the items did not build correctly. So we have to go in, build the items again. September was even worse. September was way better, Santiago. September would have been one of the best months to pick. October will actively hurt the release of the game. I know you want to keep screaming Silk Song over and over again. Realistically, it doesn't matter at all. And you don't, not to be rude to you, but you don't understand. We've spent like 4 hours looking at the calendars. I would much rather release my game 3 weeks after Silk Song, a game that has no overlap with my historical strategy game at all, than release on a day that has 60 other games coming out per day with massive sales running that prohibit you from even releasing the game. It's not even an option, to the point where there are many other developers all squeezing and cramming into the end of October because there's no other day they can possibly pick. And now, because they're all cramming, now there's like 100 games per day on some of those days, and your game will be so buried, it doesn't even matter if a popular game came out. And by the way, Battlefield's coming out, Outer Worlds 2 is coming out, all of these major AAA releases, some of which are top 5 on wish lists or top 1 to top 50 are all coming out day after day after day, in addition to a plethora of all these indie games coming out. And there are many games where someone won't even be able to find them. That's how buried it is. At least with Silk Song, that comes out, you click the next button on the banner, and your game could be number 2. Or you could go to top sellers, and Silk Song will be up there, and then underneath it, it still has the regular 9 or so games that are going to be there. In October, there will be days where there will be games with a great amount of wish lists that can't even make it onto that top 10. You would have to click on See More, scroll all the way to the bottom to find them, even if they're popular, just because of how overcrowded. October is going to be absolutely one of the worst release months you could possibly pick. That is from my actual deep research on it, and we are having to release that month. So I get, again, that people like fucking sorry to swear, people like Silk Song, and they think that it will cause your sales to go down or something. But that would only really matter if you release the same day. If you release the same day as Silk Song. The other thing is EU5, the next big mainline Paradox game, is also coming out a week after our game comes out on November 4th, which is makes that date even worse for us. So in every conceivable way, that date is gonna. I know I'm just complaining right now, but I'm just venting a bit because there's just no dates. But at this point, I think you just have to, release. I think you just have to be like, you know what? Let's pick a day. We're gonna put it out when we're able to, and just get it out. You can't at this point. It's too late to actually pick a good day. I cannot load into the game because something's broken. So I'm going to wait until that's fixed and then move on to something else. Yeah, end of the year is always a battle for release dates in the game market. Exactly. Yep. What can I do then? I can't show you guys. We'll just go back to what we were doing. We're in the middle of repricing stuff. Okay, so a reinforced weapon. Now let's go check what we call it. We just call it good. I got rid of the reinforced. I just call it good or excellent. So this is good. And a good Potsdam, the stat differences in melee, you're going to go from 10 to 10.5. That's nothing. So we need to fix that. We need to make it so when you get a melee buff, I think what we need to do is not use a multiplier. I think, because there are some guns whose melee is 3 and some guns whose melee is 18. So if you do a multiplier, doubling 3 is a much different result than doubling 18. But adding 3 is decent, and adding 3 there is decent. Yeah, so we need to change this to not be a multiplier. So we need to say, if your gun gets the good quality, maybe you add 4 melee attack. If it's excellent quality, maybe 8. Maybe that's too much. Let's see what actually the accuracy improves to. Let's see that first. Accuracy goes from 18 accuracy to 22. 22. It'll round up to 22 about. So I think, and then what does it go to? 25 afterwards. Yeah, I think like 4 and 8 is reasonable. Maybe 3 and 6. Let's go 3 and 6. Let's not overdo it, because I don't want melee to just become this, stack 150 melee damage and kill everything. Let's go 3 and 6. So we're going to change this like that and make this addition instead of multiplication. So we're going to go to firearms, and then we go to melee, and notice how this multiplies. Now if we just add, what do we get? We go from 10 to 13. That's much better, right? So all we have to do is go in and just do additions for these. I don't know on Google Sheets if there's a faster way of doing this, but I think we do have to manually, because if I drag the cell down, it's going to make assumptions and fill in data that I don't want to be filled in. So yeah, we're going to add. Notice the John Coping just went from 30 to 13, which is a much better result when you're not doing a multiplier. Yeah. With accuracy, I don't like some of these things are fine to do multipliers, but holy crap. You get 60 melee damage on this. Yeah, that's nuts. That's absolutely nuts. So let's go fix this. By the way, the reason the number's so high is just because I changed the multiplier into a 3. So it's multiplying by 3. So it's even more extreme. It's not like it was like this in game before. It's just because I changed the number right now to be 3 and 6 for addition. But when it was multiplication, I think it was 1.5. So it was not this extreme before. But it was still a problem. There. So now you're adding. And then charge attack, we're going to do the exact same thing. We're just going to do an addition. And this is going to give us a better result. And I've never done a good proper balance pass on weapons. So in doing this, I think it's going to put the weapons in a much better state. There's a lot of things in this game. There are a lot of things. Yeah, there's actually a weapon that had a 0. So if you do a multiplier on 0, it did nothing. Now it actually adds. But anyways, there's a lot of parts in the game that I haven't touched for a year. So when people complain about the balance, I totally get it because I've not touched this. I got to open it up and finally just do a pass on it. And with all of my knowledge I have now about the game, it was hard to balance things a year ago when like the game wasn't even playable, right? So I have to go in and just, with what I know now, make something a bit more reasonable. I didn't even know how the economy was going to work. Like, would $1,000 be a lot of money, or would $100 be a lot of money? I didn't know. So now that I know these things, it allows me to do this easier. Okay. Okay, that's much better. So charge attack and quality, that's better. Accuracy looked good to me. I was pretty happy with how accuracy worked. Effective range, you get a 1.5 increase in effective range. Let's see if that's overpowered, though. The effective range on a Potsdam is 75 out of 112. By the final stage, it's 112 out of 129. It's a little bit high. I think it's a little too high. Like, what I'd probably do is bring this down to, like, 1.6 and 1.3. And I'd probably bring this down to, like, 1.4 and 1.2. I think that's better for me. So now we go, you get 112 range with 65 effective range versus a weapon by default. What's a default weapon? Like Tula. Where's Tula? A Tula is at 125 with 50 effective range. So you can see my range is a little bit lower, but that effective range is higher. And then by the time we get to the final stage with the Potsdam, we've almost got 100 effective range, which is the max range of certain carbines. That's your effective range, which is very good. And 130 range, so it can fire further. The top effective range of the most excellent weapon in the game is currently 172, which is a Charleville. How about the Jaeger? 207. That's pretty big. I feel like the range buff is getting too large, right? Because to go from, let's see what the Jaeger, 100, actually, you know what? 180 to 200 on a Jaeger rifle in terms of quality is actually fine. Let's try the Potsdam. Going 112 to 130 is also fine. I actually think that's okay. Okay, let me open the chat again because I'm ignoring you guys. I strongly believe you should give every line infantry basic bayonets. Their melee stats are way too high when you buy units from the shops. What does this mean? You should give every line infantry unit I do this already. I do give them basic. I changed it. It's in the next version. That's going to happen. Their melee stats are way too high when you buy units from the shops. That I don't understand. You're saying you should give them melee damage. You should give them bayonets to give them higher melee damage because their melee stats are too high. Well, I'm not sure what you mean by that. Praying for Denmark, yeah. Okay. Yeah, range looks good. Melee attack looks good. All of these buffs look good to me. Barracks get bayonets. Regulars don't. What does that mean? Barracks get bayonets? I'm not sure what that means either. Okay, apparently I think I just have to undo everything, which is fine. There's nothing that needs to be saved, actually. Yeah, let's undo everything. Yep, we're good. And then I'm going to try to load in again. And we're going to check out the new item generation. Okay. New and start. Good. When you buy grenadiers from shops, they come with specific types of... They come with a specific musket, and higher tier units come with higher tier bayonets. Like socket bayonets. I don't know what you mean. Every unit comes with a basic bayonet. That's it. There's no one starts with higher tier bayonets. They don't. I have it in the actual faction list that they don't. So I'm not sure where you're getting that from. Socket bayonet, socket bayonet, socket bayonet, socket bayonet, socket bayonet, socket bayonet. Everybody gets the exact same one. The only thing that is worse is recruits get worn bayonets instead. And that's it. Alright, so I loaded in. I managed to load in here. And let's go check. I don't know why the encounters are all spawning in clusters now. You see that? Look, all of them spawned in one cluster, so something's going wrong there. Yeah, I changed it so recruits start with bayonets. I didn't like that they started with nothing. So here's the new... Actually, I have to rebuild my data because this is all wrong. Sorry, hold on. I gotta build units. And then I gotta build items. Do I need to... No, I think those two are the things I need to build. And then I'll go check it out. But yeah, I didn't like having no bayonets at all in recruits because they were too easy to exploit by just mass charging them and they couldn't really fight back. And that was kind of a problem. Okay. Let's jump in. Do elite units already have better weapons when you get them? No, they do not. They don't, but I like that because by the time you get elite units, you have such good items that I'd rather the player give those units those items rather than having just more free stuff. I think the progression of the game is fun in that way. But yeah, take a look here. You can see our musketeers now come with socket bayonets, and I've debuffed socket bayonets. They're not as extreme. Now they just give 6 melee, 6 charge. I think before they were giving like 20 or something ridiculous. Like all the bayonets got reworked. They were just the values were all over the place. Some of the bayonets were giving like 35 melee or charge damage, which is crazy. And now look, your crappy cantonists just have a 2-4 bayonet, which I think is more reasonable. Yeah. Yeah, way too high. And then the generation's been changed, so you're getting more options now and more good options at shops. It's a quarter. There's also more buildings, so you notice I think an extra building spawned here that normally wouldn't have. And now look, we've got plenty of bayonet options and lots of gun variety. The only issue is just you're not seeing sabers too often, but I think we're going to move sabers to the stable. And then we're going to move that over. And then... I'm surprised there's only 3 units that generated here. That's very weird. More items at shops, less provisions. Where would... Oh, I have to rebuild core data. So once I rebuild core data, it's going to add in more units. I made it so there's more units that spawn in. Yeah, so you just have more options of more things you can buy. So that's better. Yeah. What else do I need to do? Yeah, I don't know why. Look how clustered the encounters are. So they're broken right now. So we'll have to fix that before we push this to the beta build. But yeah, you can see that is improved with the weapons. And now let's go back to our items. We're almost done. We're going to go to firearms. We just have to price our better weapons. So we've actually pushed down the basic prices. And now if you want a refined weapon, I think like it should probably be... I think a refined weapon should be 2 times the price of its basic equivalent and 3 times the price of its excellent. I know that sounds too good. That sounds too easy. Like a 2 times multiplier 3 times, but I was just thinking this should be around the like 150 mark. But if you just double 80, it's 160. I think that works fine. So look, if we just do equals the base price of the weapon times 2, I think that looks fine to me. And if I just add that to everything, I think that looks fine. Let's check out their Jaeger rifle. A basic Jaeger rifle, I think, should be about 3 times the price of a regular weapon, which would be around the 320 mark. So let's go 320 for this. That'll get multiplied by 2, which is too much. I think 640 is too much for the good quality. Base rifle can't be bought. What do you mean can't be bought? Let's check the weights. Drop weight is negative 600, and it's common. Let's see why it's negative 600 and if that means anything bad. At a shop, you're going to get a plus 500 on common, minus 600, and then weapons 100. So it has a weight of 0, which is actually fine. It means it can spawn. So yeah. I haven't seen a single Jaeger rifle. Yeah, I believe that's been fixed. Like based on these numbers, it should be appearing. I think 320, and let's go for the Jaeger rifle. Let's do a 1.5 times multiplier, so 480, and then by the time it's here, so what we're gonna do is I'm gonna have to redo something here. Hold on. This should equal the base price times 3 now, so 240. I think that's more reasonable. And then this should be a 2 times multiplier, so it's up to 640. Yeah, that looks good. Would you include the Austrian Windböschen air rifle? That wasn't invented yet until the Napoleonic Wars. If I was doing a Napoleonic game, that would be a fun weapon to include. It's just a really rare Easter egg, but it just was not invented yet. I think these weapon prices look pretty good to me. I think the last thing I want to do is just maybe make some differences in prices between models. From what I'm seeing... Maybe OH, you could actually give me some insight, because it seems like you've played the game a lot, and I don't know if anybody else here is also a playtester who's watching. But based on these stats, let's see which muskets feel like they should maybe be worth a little bit more. Let's rank them by color coding their names. Ignore the carbines. Let's just look at the main musket. For me, a Potsdam looks pretty average. You get less range and accuracy, but the point of a musket is to shoot someone, so that seems like it's not great. It can be used, it seems niche, like fast reload and fast effective range means you have to get close, which is good for its use case, like that use case, but it's harder for maybe a newer player to be able to do that. So I'd say like just mid-tier. This one, the Neustadt gives you higher range and high charge attack, but a slow reload. And by the way, for you guys, I've rebalanced for Santiago and OH. All these guns have been completely redone. So anything you know about a Potsdam or a Neustadt, completely redone. I redid the stats entirely. So don't go off of maybe your knowledge of how they work right now. But yeah, I would say like these are mid to me. I think getting a lot of extra range and charge attack. Actually, they have 2 bonuses here. Why are the Austrians getting 2 bonuses? Look, they have 1, 2, 3 things in the light color. You're only supposed to get 1. So let me fix this. I think what we wanted to do is just give them average melee attack. So what we wanted to do is say, use J9 without getting a buff. Yeah, that's corrected. I fixed that. Okay, I'm glad we fixed it. So they have good charge attack, or great charge attack, and good range. And it's just their effective range, so their pot shots at the furthest range are going to be a little bit weak, and they're going to be a little slow to reload. But they can. It's kind of like a rifle, but when you're done shooting, and if the enemy closes in, you can charge them to get them off of you. So I think this one's pretty like normal tier as well. I have a feeling we're going to come away with this with everything being around the middle tier because they're all balanced to be somewhat equal. Atula is just really great at charging. It has bad accuracy, average range, and it's slow. I would make this one a little cheaper. So I'm going to make it a light red. Because this is like, you got to want to charge with this and get into melee to get your use out of it. Should the Charleville be more melee oriented? Well, here's the thing. I was thinking the weapons should be balanced almost like food. If I had a cinnamon drink and I put a cinnamon stick in it and I put cinnamon whipped cream on top, that's not good, okay? Even though it's cohesive, it's all cinnamon, right? It all matches. There's nothing that complements each other. You wouldn't put the same ingredient on the same ingredient on the same ingredient. So I like things that have a little bit more flavor in terms of like different. So like the French have really good charging stats, but maybe their weapons enable them to do good at further range. So you could keep a few units with this far range weapon. You kind of have to play around it. They get no bonus to their charge attack, but their units are naturally good at charging. So either you're like, all right, well, the weapon's not good at charging, but my guys are, so it all kind of balances out in the end. Or you say, hey, I'm going to swap out one of my Charlevilles to really lean into charging. Or you say, hey, a couple of my French units are actually going to keep their Charlevilles because I'm going to lean them more into range and keep them at a far. So I like that they are not just doubling down. It almost becomes a caricature of itself, you know? So I like that they're different from each other. So Charlevilles are fantastic musket for firing. They're one of the best musket types overall. Yeah, I agree. Charlevilles are good. That's why I give them a buff to accuracy and to range. They're just, I give them low charge attack because they're such a refined, nice weapon that you would hate to like throw that into a melee, I guess, just for stereotyping it. So I'm going to put this in a light green because I think it should be slightly more pricey. Yeah. And then Brown Bess has good accuracy, good effective range. It's just not great at melee attack. I think this actually seems pretty nice to me. I'd actually make the Charleville maybe like slightly more expensive. The Jaeger rifle is going to be the most expensive because it's very niche and very rare. And the John Coping is like you get in, you beat the shit out of people, but it's not good at much else. So I feel like this could actually be a pretty cheap weapon that you can buy, somewhat like the Tula. Although I may make it yellow because 18 charge attack is a massive buff. It shouldn't be cheap to do that. So I'm going to make it yellow, actually. And a Delft is kind of like a Potsdam that you shouldn't be doing melee with. So I might make that yellow as well. That's kind of where I'm... And yellow will do an average price. Green will make a slightly higher price. And red will make cheaper. That's kind of what I'm thinking here. And it'll be very, very small differences in price. I just don't like when you play a game and in an RPG game, 10 items have identical prices. Even if they're balanced super well, 10 identical prices makes it look like that balancing wasn't done properly to it. That's what it looks like. So let's go into Potsdam and Neustadt. We're going to keep the same prices. We're going to make the Tula a little bit cheaper. Charleville shoot far but poor effective range is confusing. Does it have poor effective range? It doesn't. It has normal effective range. Do you mean the Neustadt? The Neustadt poor effective range just means that when you fire at your absolute maximum range, there's greater damage drop off. So you can shoot at higher range, but eventually you do want to get a little bit closer. Can you see the weaponry of your enemy? You can. Yes, you can. Let's go to pricing. Gosh, I can't see price. There it is. And we want to make the Tula a little bit cheaper, just marginally at like 75 and 55. And then we want to make the Charleville slightly more expensive at 85 and 65. We want to make, actually, we'll go 90 and 70. And then the brown best should be 85, 65. And then everything else stays the same. And then the Jaeger is still expensive good. I want to make it really subtle because they are pretty much all equal. But I just want to, it's a little bit of extra flavor when things have different little prices, and it just makes it feel more real going to a shop. How many times have you gone to a store and everything on the shelf is the exact same price? Even if it's all the same quantity of food, it doesn't work like that. And it makes it look more natural when you have a little bit more price for variation. So I think this looks good for me. I'm happy with the prices of weapons here now, and I'm done with this task. So we can mark this off. Done. Now we got to do a unit balance pass. So this is medium hard because it's going to require a little bit of testing. But what we want to do here is, here's the thing I notice. Grenadiers really sucked in a previous build, and I kept buffing them over and over and over again. I think I went too far. So you'll notice here, the German Grenadier is 45 and 40 compared to Drilled Fusilier, who's at 30-20. Now, here's the thing. You already get better morale. So you're going to last longer in a melee regardless. You already have better stamina too. So to get that in addition to this large of a charge and melee buff, it feels like Grenadiers maybe have too high charge stats. Now, here's the more extreme thing I was thinking of doing. You guys can feel free to shoot this down. I was thinking, what if everyone got a -5 melee and charge stat change? And then heavy units got another -5 melee and charge. Because I feel like there are some units that are just starting with an absurdly high melee stat, and then they get a weapon by default, and then you get an item, and then you get a bayonet, and then you get veterancy, and then you get an officer, and then you get a stratagem, and you go, oh fuck, this unit has 120 melee. Like if everything just went down a little bit, just a little less extreme, just bring everything down, I think it's gonna things will feel less extreme in the late game where you touch someone and they break. And when we do the items, I'm probably gonna do the same thing. There are certain items that give you a +16 to something. That just shouldn't be the case. Like a good buff from an item should be like +8, not +16. So I kind of want to bring everything down. Yeah. And am I crazy for doing that? Because I was looking at this and I was like, what's the lowest charge in melee a unit even has? A 10, a 5. There is a 5 somewhere. So he would go down to a 0 melee. Unless we think this, that what if we added a little more nuance to this? What if not everyone got the melee decrease? What if everyone, and then we'll add a little carrot, besides recruit tier units, got a -5 to everything. Oh, I already reduced melee speed. I just reduced it, so they swing slower now. So that I already did that on top of everything as well. But yeah, what if everybody else got a -5, but the recruits stay the same? Because the recruits already suck, right? Their morale is already lower. So if we bring everybody else down, they'll just be closer to the other units, meaning these units can't just body the recruits and slam into them and just beat them instantly. At least they'll be able to put up a fight a little bit, especially because they're now coming up pre-equipped with bayonets. So we do that. And then the third step would be check out the recruits and make sure none have a higher melee or charge stat than the line infantry above them. So this is a safety check we do. Because there will be some units where recruit has 5 melee and a line infantry has 5 melee. There might be a case like that. And if we reduce this down... Actually, let me use a better number. There. We might reduce this down to 5. In fact, let me get an even better number. Hold on. There we go. If we reduce this down, let's say it somehow became 5 and this became a 10, that would be weird, right? To actually lose melee if you upgrade the unit. So we don't want that. Grenzer recruits have a higher accuracy than the infantry. Santiago, one thing, just for anybody who's in the playtesting, I have 10 pages of changes I've already done based on everything you guys have said. I've monitored everything. Like, if you want to talk about Grenzers, I've already changed like 1 million of their stats. Everything you guys have an issue with the random generation and everything, like I'm working on all of it. I've done so much already, so don't worry about like some of those. It's still a good thing for you to bring that up though, because you didn't know. But I'm just saying, like, I've been keeping up with what a lot of people have been saying. So if that's been said 3 or 4 times in the playtesting already, I've probably addressed it. It's still good to actually just tell me, because maybe I did miss it in some cases. So I'm actually not upset for you to remind me of those things. I think you should still. But yeah. But yeah, how do you guys feel about this? Is this maybe too extreme? Or if you're checking all the stats, I've set balance suggestions. Every change I'd make for French Grenadiers are currently unbalanced. Yeah, we'll get to the faction specific changes next, but I just want to do like a sweeping change first. And then when the dust settles, we clean it all up. Let's go in and see what happens. Let's go in to charge and melee, reduce everybody down, and see what the hell happens here. So we're going to equals this -5. And we're just going to see, because there's some people, you're starting out with 55 melee. You add a sword. Now you're at 75 melee. You didn't even add a single item yet. You don't have any veterancy. It's just a little too high. That's it. And all we're talking about is a -5. So it's not even a massive change. It's just to calm all the stats down a little bit, because it's easy to get carried away, and units can snowball into these crazy states, and it's just too much. So we're gonna dial everything back. And the best part is, I don't think anybody's ever looked at a recruit unit and thought it was too hard, for the most part. So with recruits, I don't think we need to touch them much. I don't think recruits should be much worse. I think recruits could probably stay about where they're at. It's just everybody else. When the high tier units start snowballing all their stats, if you're like, well, let's give them better melee, and we'll give them better morale, and we'll give them better accuracy, and we'll give them better stamina. Okay, if you stack 100 better things, they're going to be like exponentially better, right? So do the Prussians get Potsdam Giants? So the Potsdam Giants, after Frederick the Soldier King died, they were disbanded because they were like a personal favorite unit of his. So Frederick the Great didn't have the Potsdam Giants, but the men who previously were part of the Potsdam Giants were reformed into the Grenadier Guard. So you can look on Chronoskoph, and they are in the game. You can look in Chronoskoph, and you can see the Grenadier Guards. These guys, and I'm pretty sure they were previously known. Look, they're originally the Potsdam Giants. And they are in the game, and they look like this. Okay, so let's go back. And now let's go case by case. Let's grab these. I'm going to pop those new stats in. I'm going, actually, you know, here's what we'll do. We don't want to affect the recruits charge or melee, so we're going to clear that. I'm going to actually grab the conditional formatting. Oh, didn't mean to do that. And get rid of that for this. Oh, fuck. All right, well, we can't. That's fine. That's fine. I buffed them a bit since sometimes they're just veteran units with a different name. I don't know, Santiago. Like, they get two distinct buffs, maybe even 3 sometimes. Like, look here. Like, a Lenoble Jaeger reads the same stats from its Jaeger counterpart, which is a Freikorps Jaeger, but +5 to its walk, +5 to its run, +5 to its stamina. Actually, yeah, so it's only 2 buffs. A Heinrich von Preußen Fusilier grabs the same Fusilier morale, but adds 5, and then adds 5 charge. I guess we could go +10 for each of those instead of a +5, but I feel like that might be too powerful. I'm not opposed to that, though. What do you guys think? Maybe for speed, +5 is fine, but for the other things, I think +10 could be more appropriate, because speed starts to add up fast. Otherwise, you don't want units outrunning cavalry. Let's get back to that later, though. I don't want to get sidetracked. Okay? So we don't need to debuff the infantry, or the light infantry. We don't need to debuff the provincials. They're fine. We don't need to debuff artillery. We don't need to debuff recruits. And we don't need to debuff these provincials either. So I'm clearing out any numbers we don't want to mess with. Don't want to debuff those. Nor the provincials. Nor the artillery. Nor the recruits. And nor the provincials. And nor the recruits. Nor the recruits. Nor the provincials. Nor the artillery. Nor the recruits. Cossack riders. Cossack riders. What are they currently at? They're only at 25, and they go up to 40. Yeah, so they're fine where they're at. Look at the gap here. Like, one upgrade, you go from 25 to 40. Well, what if it was you go from 25 to 35? That seems like a more reasonable. If we reduce everybody's melee, I think that's a lot more reasonable. But the Cossack Riders shouldn't go down to 20, so I think, because they're a low-tier cavalry unit. So we're going to keep the low-tier units where they're at and just make the high-tier units work a little harder to get these higher stats because they're just nutso right now. The land millets. I don't think I want to touch land millets. Aha, they're actually listed as line infantry. They should be listed as recruit infantry. So that's actually wrong, so that's fixed. I'll put in the balance changes that the British land millets units are now properly designated as militia unit class instead of line infantry. We'll say all non-militia units have had their melee and charge stats reduced by -5, because that's what we're doing. And then we're going to get rid of provincial cavalry. Right now we're just doing exemptions of like who's not going to get the subtraction applied to them. That's what we're doing now. France is pretty easy. We're only going to... France is going to get a massive debuff because they only have one recruit, so everybody else is going to get tanked here. Oh, I forgot to do provincials. Let me scroll back up. Where's the provincial cavalry? I did them. Good. And then provincial here. These are fine. Are the provincial... Yeah. Okay. Because the French are not split among many trees, they have one big tree. They actually have more unit variety than the other nations because they don't have so many redundant recruits over and over again. But that means they have a lot of units that overlap. Like they have like 8 cavalry that are all pretty much the same. So we may want to differentiate them just a little bit later as well. Okay. So now let's enact this change and see if we fucked anything up, which we definitely will, but let's just see what happens. So we're going to move that over, move this over, move that over, move that over, and we're just basically moving the stats now to be their debuffed values. And the overall result of this should be that melees are a little less extreme. I slowed them down a little bit as well. And that recruits can kind of hold their own in a melee a little bit better now. And they can't just get... I feel like early game, you can theoretically mass charge recruits and just get them off the board. I also increased the fatigue rate gain for charging. And I also made it so when you're exhausted, your stats go down even more. So getting exhausted from constant non-stop charges is more devastating now. So that you cannot just charge and then charge and then charge and then charge and then just keep doing that. Eventually your guy will lose momentum. They also get slower now when they're exhausted. So when you've charged for your 5th time, you're going to be going so slow that your guy is going to be completely vulnerable to enemy fire. And you can't push them as hard as you are now. Unless you give them a bunch of stamina items, in which case you can fight against that, which is good. But you don't have a freebie right now to just mass charge and have very little penalty. So your stats go down further and you're much slower. But yeah, this should get our numbers down in a much more reasonable... Okay, let's clear these columns. And here we go. So, maybe a cooldown between charges. There is already a cooldown in addition to me increasing the charge fatigue. So that's naturally going to happen, yeah. All right, here's where we're at. So light infantry got a really bad nerf when it comes to their melee and charge stats. They're pretty low now. But the cool thing is I reduced the penalty they take. I went into the core data and reduced the penalty they take when they're charged. So even though their stats are now really low, they're not going to get this massive penalty when they get charged, which is good. Let's see if we messed anything up. The only weird thing is that musketeers now have like the same stats of melee and charge as a land milits. However, their accuracy is better, their stamina is better, their morale is better, and they move faster. So you can see the musketeers are still better. Like, even bringing everybody down by 10 points of all their melee, they're still better than the militia. So we didn't mess anything up there. The light cavalry actually looks a lot better now because the provincials... This is still a massive difference. 15 to 35 is still a huge jump. in how bad the provincial cavalry is. And this is after I debuffed all the heavier cavalry. So it's already a big disparity, but it should be brought better, especially because their morale sucks. So yeah, I could even be convinced to make the provincial cavalry's melee stat +5. Because look how low it is. Look at 15 up to 30 when you promote, in addition to gaining higher morale and higher reload and higher accuracy and everything. And look, there's less men in them. There's only 400 guys here. So I kind of feel like the provincials should get a buff there. I don't think anyone would complain about that. Who's ever fought a provincial cavalry and complained about how good they are? Right? +15 because of swords. I did reduce swords effects, though. So check this out. I went into swords. They've been completely overhauled. Like, fully overhauled. Now, swords are just giving like 6 and 3 or 3 and 6. The best sword in the game, a cuirassier sword, gives a 15 melee attack. Which, if anything, is still pretty high, but it's lower than what it was before. Let's go take a look. Previously, if anything, it still feels pretty high, doesn't it? Previously, cuirassier swords were giving 15 and 35. 35 charge attack. And a heavy saber was giving 30 melee. Now a heavy saber gives 20. I could go even lower, if I'm being honest here. I could go even lower than this. I feel like 20 is still a really high stat. And how much does this cost? I bet it doesn't even cost that much to get one of these. Only like 130 or 180. The other thing is we're using a multiplier for the charge, and maybe we shouldn't be doing that for charge and melee. But these numbers aren't ridiculous. Like a 20 goes up to 28. That's okay. That increase seems fine. I think that these numbers are just a little too high. Like, I might even say like 2.5 and 2.5. Sorry, and 5.2. And then you get a Hussar Saber and you go up to 6.10. And then you get a Dragoon Sword and you go to 10.6. And then the Cuirassier Sword was what? Relative to everything else, you were dropping your charge attack down and going up in melee. Maybe it goes back down to 5 and 12, or maybe 14. So this way a heavy saber gives you 20 melee attack, which is still extreme. I don't know if I went a little overboard with these changes here. Maybe I did. Like, you know what? My problem is actually not with these numbers. These numbers seem actually fine. It is... my issue is with the special weapons here. Shouldn't sabers be better in melee? And swords in charging? Not really. In fact, I think it was you who suggested the opposite, so I changed it. So you're now suggesting the opposite again. A saber is for a quick light cavalry to do like a sweeping run-by attack. A sword is meant... you haven't suggested? Well, it was the opposite way before, and then everyone was complaining about it. It was the opposite before. It used to be that a saber was good in prolonged melee but bad at charging, and that a regular straight sword was bad at prolonged melee but good at charging. But I think it's the opposite. I think a curved sword is better at a sweeping quick attack, but better in a worse in a prolonged fight. Like hussars are meant for hit and run, which is why you have higher charge but lower melee. A cuirassier sword, you could beat the shit out of someone if they were locked in the room with you, but if you had to sprint at somebody with it, it's a heavy sword to hit with. So, yeah. I think my issue is these numbers seem too high. 15 is okay for a cuirassier sword. It may even be just a little bit too high, but I'm not entirely opposed to it. I think this is just too high here. So I'd go like +2, +2, maybe even +3. Yeah, that seems better. +3, +3, and +3. That looks way better to me. I prefer that. Good. Now I want to go back to the provincials and maybe buff them up by 5, because they just feel a little bit weak. Let me look at another nation. Look at Britain, 15 to 25. That seems perfectly fine. It's a 10 difference with Britain. And then look at the Germans, go 15 to 35. That doesn't make any sense. And 15 to 45. How do you go from 15 to 45? Like, doesn't that just seem a little too high? I feel like it should be like 10 to 20 less. So I'm going to buff up all the provincial cavalry melee stats. Because they just feel too crappy. So provincial, these guys are fine. They can stay. 15 to 20 is perfectly reasonable. 15 to 35 is ridiculous. So let's go 20. I know these changes are going to have all these knock-on effects, but I think we just have to break some bones and be okay with messing things up. And then later we've just got to go and do more refinements. But I think we have to do this because I don't think there's an easier way to do it. 15, we should probably go up to 20 for that. This looks fine. Rider recruits go 10 to 10. How's that make any sense? This should go 15. Dragoons go back down to 15. I don't know why that is. Why are there Russian dragoons down to 15 melee? But for like Austria it's 30, and for Britain it's 20. They go down to 15. That doesn't make any sense. So there should be like 20. Yeah. Cossack riders look fine to me. The rider recruits suck. Like, they're really bad. They're almost a little too bad. I almost feel like they should get the same morale, maybe, but they have worse stats. So at least they will fight a little longer since they're Russians. This way they're also a little bit, they stick around a little longer than a Cossack rider since they're part of the conventional army, but they're slower. I feel like that morale should probably go up a little bit. Do I want to do that? Maybe. Maybe I would just bump up their melee. So when you promote to provincial... So when you promote to provincial, you're getting the morale buff and movement buff and charge buff. Cossack should be better at... Yeah, they're better at shock because they have 40 charge. The lowest tier one is a 40 charge, which is higher than every single regular Russian cavalry unit. So they're really good at hit and run. And they have good melee stats. And they have good speed and good stamina. If anything, the Cossacks right now are a little overtuned. They don't really have a clear weakness, which I think they should probably go down in melee stats by like 5 if they have this high charge. This way they can't stay. You have to like go in and out of melee. So I may actually reduce them down like that. So they jump in and out. But look at the charge stats. Like they go up to 55, which is higher than everyone. Yeah, that's perfectly reasonable. And their stamina is insane. And their speed's insane. So they're super fast. They can keep running really long time. But now their melee is just a little bit worse. I would... Let's see what the... We're in the middle of bumping everything up, right? British provincials are at 15. Rider recruits then can be at... Yeah, this can be at 15. That can stay the way it is. Yeah. What did we just say about the Russian provincial cavalry? Did we already just buff them? I can't remember. Yes, they did get buffed up to 15. Good. Okay. So this looks good to me. If they go up by 5, they're going to be the same as the Hussars. The Grenz Hussars are horrible, but look at that accuracy. They get 60 accuracy. So Grenz Hussars are really just meant to be shooting cavalry. I think that fills a niche. I think that's interesting. So I don't think they need good melee. They can basically be run and gun troops, kind of like the British light dragoons. Plus, you don't buy Grenzers for their melee. All of the Grenzers' melee sucks, besides their Grenadiers, which the only reason you'd get them is I made them cheaper. And they have good accuracy, so they're like the only Grenadier with great accuracy. Light Dragoons are horrible to use or against the AI, because I feel like to use them, they're not bad. They have 60 accuracy. I don't know how that's bad. I buffed the Carbines, too. I buffed Carbines, so this will be even more impactful. Let's go to the next Provincial Cavalry. A lot of what you guys know is wrong now, because, again, I have 10 pages of changelog, so unless you're factoring all this in, I think some of these opinions don't work. Like, look at that. All light cavalry given plus 10 accuracy. On top of that, all dragoon cavalry given another 10 accuracy. So you've got, what you're talking about is outdated by 20 points of accuracy. So there's just certain things, and then we go to carbines, which cavalry uses. Carbines now have higher range, higher accuracy, and higher reload speed. Well, now their carbines are even better too. So I think we have to play the game more in order to give those opinions right now, is what I'm thinking. Provincial, these guys are fine. 15 to 35 is a big disparity. We'll go up to 20. And this seems good. Okay, so I've fixed all the provincial cavalry. The next thing, this might be extreme. Let me know what you guys think. And we can offset this. There's ways we can offset this a bit. What do you guys think about reducing everybody's accuracy in the entire game by 5, including recruits? I would include recruits because, unlike when we did the melee charge thing, look, even after doing that, the line infantry still have better melee than the recruits do. But if you did it to accuracy, they would go, if you didn't reduce the recruits' accuracy, they'd be 15-15, which doesn't make any sense, right? So if you reduced accuracy, it'd be everyone, besides artillery. Artillery doesn't need an accuracy debuff because artillery misses half of its shots anyways, and I don't want to make it any worse. But what we can do is we can make it reduce everybody's accuracy by 5, because there's some units here with 60 starting accuracy, which is too high. And then what we do is if we think combat is now too slow and units aren't killing each other fast enough, I can artificially go into the core data and check this out. If you go to accuracy, you can actually artificially increase or decrease the potency of accuracy. So let's say we reduced everybody's skill. If everyone was too slow, then we just bump up the kill rate. But the reason we would reduce the numbers is because people are just starting with high numbers. This 60, you might think, well, 60 is okay. It's a late tier unit. Okay, we'll give him a gun and one item. So let's give him one gun. Let's see what he goes up to. Let's give him a good brown best weapon. Well, we'll give him a good one, not an excellent one, just good. Now he's going to add to his accuracy 28 accuracy. So we're going to go 60 plus 28 plus an item. And let's do some veterancy. Some veterancy might give me like 6 if I got like 3 veterancy. And then I want to get an item like a marksman of good quality, might give me like 8. So I now have 102 accuracy with bronze veterancy, a good weapon, not excellent, and 1 item. And no officer and no stratagem that buffs it, and I'm already at 102. If we reduce everybody by -5, at least it'd be at 97. And then if we make the items a little less potent, and make the items just a little less extreme, you might go down like another 4. And now we're looking at like 93. And at least that seems more reasonable, right? So I think, are you guys okay with doing that? With just reducing everybody's accuracy just by a bit? And if it slows down combat, we'll just artificially make damage higher to compensate. And it'll be the same, but everybody's numbers will be lower. Or we keep it the way, if anything, combat goes a little quick. There are firefights that last pretty damn quick. So I think reducing accuracy may not actually be a bad thing. So let's see what the hell happens. The worst case scenario, the lowest accuracy somebody has is like a 10. I don't think anyone even has a 5 accuracy they start with. Yeah, no one even has a 5 accuracy, so this will be fine. And by the way, just to remind you, no one would get 5 accuracy because once you equip a gun adds like 20 or 30 accuracy. So this number is really just the base starting, just like the base amount of accuracy. And then you add a gun to it and it immediately alters. So I think we just pull everything down a little bit. Does a prolonged firefight impact stamina? It does. Reloading your gun makes you a little bit tired. So if you pull a guy out of a firefight and he finishes reloading and stands idle, he will replenish his stamina. And I made stamina even more impactful. If you get exhausted, it's really, really bad. And because players exploit the AI by running around the map, sprinting and doing these crazy like charges and everything, it's been very easy for a player to exploit that. But now if they get tired, if they get really tired, and they become very slow and very vulnerable, the AI can actually exploit it and fight back a little bit more. But when the player's flying Mach 10 around the AI and never getting tired, and the AI can't keep up, that's a problem. So we're going to reduce all this. And I'm not going to reduce the accuracy of artillery. Artillery, to me, is completely fine. I don't think they need any adjustment. I've never seen someone's artillery go up like to 200 accuracy or something. And even so, we're going to debuff the items, so it'll be even harder to do regardless. And if anything we do today messes up the balance, that's fine. We'll just make slight alterations after playtesting. But that's what this is for. We need to playtest and make changes and be reactive. We can't just like grow attached to the numbers that we put here and not be willing to change anything. But what we're essentially doing is just lowering the extremes. We're just making it so units don't start acting like they're World War II, you know, MG42 gunners just mowing shit down with their items. So there. Now everybody's got lower accuracy, which isn't even that impactful. Like there's still units here with 55 accuracy, which is still insane, right? The next thing I want to do is, okay, so here's what we have to do next. I feel like heavy units are too powerful, which means heavy infantry pass and a heavy cavalry pass. And then faction review. Are Prussian troops good? Are Freikorps fulfilling their niche? Are Austrians fine? How are Grenzers and Hungarians? Are Russians good? How do Observation feel? And Cossacks? Are British good? Differences between Hessians, Hanover, Brunswick, and the English troops. And then are French good? Volontaires, Irish, Swiss, German. If we do these, we'll have been successful in doing our faction balance pass. So let's first take a look at the heavy units. All right, Mr. Revere, I'll see you later. Thank you for joining me, though. But yeah, let's jump over to heavy units. So anything heavy, let's take a look at. Now, currently, the accuracy of like a grenadier is 25, right? The accuracy of a drilled musketeer is 25. So this means when you become you have a choice in the unit tree. When you're a regular musketeer, you can promote to either a drilled or a grenadier, and your accuracy is the same between them. So this guy gets the same accuracy, but he gets extra melee and charge, which maybe makes the grenadier feel just outright better. I don't know. The one big difference is that you get minus 200 manpower. So there's less bodies, meaning even if you have equivalent accuracy, they are... In fact, let's actually just go test it. Let's go into a battle and test how big of an impact does a unit of 1,200 men. No AI. Let's take a grenadier of 1,000 strength versus a drilled musketeer of 1,200 strength. And we will see if equal accuracy is fair, or if the grenadier should not win this firefight. It won't win regardless because it has less men, but it does have higher morale. So we probably don't want to see the grenadier win this fight. I think my anticipated result that I would be happy with is that the firefight goes on for a little while and the grenadier doesn't like just barely lose, but he loses slightly. Not too decisively. I don't want him to lose decisively because he is a grenadier. He should stand and fight, but he should lose. He should slightly lose to a veteran musketeer. Okay. Let me rebuild our units and items. Good. So now we jump in and check it out. Thank you to anybody. I don't know if you guys are still here. Someone said, I've racked up 40 hours in 5 days. The game's insanely fun, replayable. Thank you, OH. I appreciate that, man. Somebody else also said something nice. I just want to say thank you. I don't know who said it, that they were just having fun on it. I don't remember who that was. Well, whoever said that a while ago, I don't know how to scroll all the way back. I'm glad you guys are having fun. Okay. Let's go see if a Prussian Grenadier of 1,000 strength, how well he does in an open field at 3 ranks versus, Empanada said it, gotcha. A veteran musketeer of also 3 ranks. So same amount of ranks, but there's more men. There. And then let's see who wins this. I'm going to turn off... Actually, I'm going to keep fire at will on and let them fire at the exact same time. So they fire. There we go. Everybody has less accuracy. We lost 90. They lost 75. So you notice, even with the same accuracy, we did worse because we have less men. There's just less bodies shooting. That's why I made the accuracy the same. And I believe, based on the result I want, I should get the result. Okay, yeah, this is not... Hold on. Okay. It just seems like casualties are too concentrated in these areas. Revere, we just closed like playtesting. We're all done with taking on new people for the time being. I think you would be a good playtester with how active you've been and everything, but I think we're all done taking new people on. I have like 50 playtesters, and I feel like right now I've got so much feedback that I am a bit overwhelmed. So I need a little bit more time, and either way, you don't want to spoil yourself on the game. I think you will be happier if you buy it on release and get the finished version. Like there is such a thing as like spoiling yourself on it when you're testing over and over again, that you'll never truly get to actually enjoy it on its full release in the same way that you hadn't played it before. All right, yeah, the veteran musketeers are winning. We are wavering and winded. Our combat effectiveness has fallen down to 65% because we're tired and our morale is low. So you can also see how much your stats go down based on your status. Whereas these guys are steady and fresh. They're actually doing very good. They have no stat debuffs. So it will compound. If you start losing, your losing will compound more and more as your guys get freaked out. So you want to pull them back, get the morale back up, and then bring them back into combat, and they're going to be more effective. But I'm glad to see this result where it's basically 2-1, 400 to 800. Because that shows the Grenadiers don't have... Their accuracy doesn't need to get reduced. I was thinking of taking the Grenadiers and bring down their accuracy, but it seems fine. Panzer Hans, there's no way to hide right now, but I think if we did like Fog of War, you know, maybe we do that post-release at some point or with a sequel. I think it is something that would be really good to add, but we just don't have that right now. I'm also thinking, is giving 18 accuracy based on a weapon, maybe that's too high. Maybe the amount of accuracy that weapons give is just too much. Maybe you should get 15 accuracy from a weapon and 10 if it's a carbine. And maybe that's a better result than giving so much accuracy away for free. Like, he's at 40 accuracy, racked up 500 kills, and he has no items or veterancy at all. And I kind of just feel like the weapons can be a little less powerful. I just want to bring a lot of the numbers down a bit. It just feels like right now some of the numbers are a little bit extreme, that's all. That's 0.9. The difference between the least accurate weapon, you gain 13, or you gain 19. So there's a 6 difference between a bad weapon and accuracy. That seems good to me. It might be a little bit high. It might be a little bit high, but... Maybe the good weapons shouldn't be that extreme. So like you're using a 13 against a 16. You don't feel as outmatched, but your reload is way faster. I think that seems a little bit better. Just trying to make sure this looks right. It doesn't feel right that a rifle has only 6 more accuracy than a bad smoothbore. Let's see. Well, here's the thing you have to realize about the accuracy. The accuracy doesn't matter quite as much here. It's more of the range that you want to look at. The range is 180 compared to like a regular weapon at 125. And in that case, I'm not upset with that. I do think we could probably make... I could go like that to make them a little bit more extreme. We could try this and see how we like it. Yeah. So I reduce the amount of accuracy that weapons give. I'm just trying to bring everybody's stats down a little bit. And I think the side effect is just that combat's going to get slowed down a little bit. But look, I mean, that guy took that many casualties in that battle, and that's not... Yeah, he's gone. I think Britain would have better reload speed. The thing is, these weapons aren't the units. The weapons are the weapons. Anybody can equip them. So it's just that the weapon... yeah, I don't know why the casualties are all clumped up. Yeah, what am I saying? I don't remember what I was talking about, but yeah. Oh, yeah, the weapon isn't reflective of the unit itself. Like, the British do have good reload skill. It's just the weapon itself. But the weapons aren't... The weapons don't necessarily all compound the strengths of the nation. So French Charleville isn't the extreme charging weapon, even though the French like to charge. It has really good range and accuracy. So you kind of have to play with it. It's like at least you get two different flavors for each country. You know, if the French were monotone, where they were like their weapons are for melee and their units are for melee and their officers are for melee, this is not a very dynamic faction. But if the French have like units with good melee and weapons at good range and officers at good morale, then that creates the flavor of France. And, you know, Russia might have troops with strong morale and weapons with strong melee, so it's kind of inverted, and then officers who enforce good, like, accuracy, for example. And it just makes these more dynamic, and I prefer doing this. There could be, like, one or two factions, which I did do, that double down in some areas. Like, the Prussians double down. I made it so that their units reload quickly, and that their weapons also reload quickly, and then their officers are, like, fast. But then this just makes a playstyle that I think synergizes pretty well. But I like that some nations are maybe a little bit more leaning into one particular playstyle, and other nations are a bit more spread out. But that just creates variety, and I think the variety is important to have. You don't want every nation to feel like a caricature or an exaggeration too far. Unless that's absolutely what they were known for in every regard. Okay. Sorry, I'm just getting DM'd. What the hell am I doing now? What are we doing now? We need to take a look at the heavy units, which we've determined their accuracy is okay. The charge stat doesn't seem horrible. Like, they're 2 times better than line infantry in charging and melee. I'm okay with that. Cavalry is at 50. And their sabers give them even higher. But they only have 600 guys. I'm not sure if I want to change the cavalry yet, or if I just want to leave them now. I already reduced the potency of the sabers, and I reduced everybody's melee and charge by 5. Do we have any other issues with the cavalry? I could make them slightly weaker, but I'm not sure if I should do that or not. I did want to take a look at each nation. So let's look at Prussia. Their Freikorps have much higher stamina, and reload is better. Their accuracy is slightly worse, and their charge is better. So they've got better charge, better melee, better reload, better stamina, better speed. It's only in morale. They're actually equal in morale. So, if anything, that feels a little bit weird that they're equal in morale. I feel like they should go down in morale a little bit with all those other bonuses. I think we should go like 30 to the recruits 35 and 45 to the musketeers 50, and then 40 to the Jaegers 45 and 55 to the grenadiers 65? Damn. Maybe we go 60 then. I don't mind their melee being so high because they are meant to be like a little bit more rough, but the morale seems a little bit extreme. Yeah, this seems more consistent. This seems better to me. Yeah, I'm okay with this. The Hungarians are definitely fulfilling a niche where they're really good at charging and melee, and their morale is even much higher too. And they're probably, no, they're not faster, but they're way less accurate and suck at reloading, so they've got their niche. The Grenzers have pretty damn high accuracy and really horrible melee. Like really, really bad melee, but that accuracy is very, very good. I think that's fine. The Russians are okay. They're bad accuracy. They have very high morale. Like 40 morale in a recruit is extreme. I think that's fine though. And they've got lots of numbers. The observation has much better accuracy, like 2 times the accuracy in some cases. but they're slow. They're very slow. And the morale is about the same. The morale is identical almost, except for the grenadiers. It looks like the observations scale the morale up a little bit higher over time. So go 40 to 40, 55 to 55, then 60 to 60, and then up to 70. I almost feel like the observation grenadiers should be 65 if they're going to match in every other way. But they do have less men. Well, let's match it for now. Now they're matched. And now that they're matched, maybe we go up in morale by 5? But then they'd have 70 morale. Is that too high? Probably too high. Who should have higher morale? The observation or the regular wing of Russian troops? Or should they be the same? That's an interesting thought. I think from a historical context, it makes sense that the observation would have higher morale because they're volunteers. They were formed not by conscription, but they volunteered because the Russians wanted to raise another army. But from a gameplay standpoint, I don't know if I necessarily see the need to distinguish one as having higher morale. Now, technically, because the observation only have 1,200 men compared to the 1,400 that the regular Russian troops have, it does mean that the observation morale is, you get less bang for your buck. Like 55 morale in 1,200 troops is worse than 55 morale in 1,400 troops. So in effect, they have lower morale in that way. The reload's actually slower. They have slower reload than the regular units and worse stamina. So the same morale, fewer numbers, worse reload, worse stamina, worse melee, worse charge, and slower movement. I feel like the observation maybe are sacrificing just a little too much, and maybe their accuracy can get bumped up. I don't mind the slow reload, because they're meant to be very methodical, but when they shoot, they're meant to be, like, they're meant to be dug in. You just find a piece of cover for them and really hunker them down. I feel as though their accuracy should be higher. Like, let's compare 20 accuracy. This unit costs 450. That'd be like a land militz. And a land militz is also here. They have 20, 30. What do we want to compare? Let's just grab the, let me grab a observation musketeer and put it next to a land militz. So the observation's slower, the morale's higher, the stamina's higher, the reload's way worse, the accuracy's higher, and the charge is worse. So it's pretty balanced between those two for them being the same price. That movement speed debuff is pretty rough, though, I'd say. And the reload's pretty damn slow. One thing I think I want to do is, everybody's been complaining that the observation's too slow, right? I think what I may do is make it so that their sprint speed is the same as a regular unit. So when they run, they can catch up, but when they walk, they really dawdle. How do you guys feel about that? Or should it be the opposite? That when they walk, they keep up, but when they sprint, they can't go as fast. I like the idea of them being slower. That's the idea, is that they are defensive troops. They're not meant to push the enemy. So, yeah, it could go either way. Someone says good sprint, faster sprint, slower walk. Yeah, what do you guys think? I'll do a vote. So for the observation corps, who's meant to be slow, faster walk but slow sprint, or slow walk but faster sprint. And by fast, it's relative. Fast just means the same as other countries. Fast doesn't mean, like, I don't want you to get it mixed up that they'd be slow and then super fast. That's not what we're talking about. We're saying, like, the baseline of speed would be like, this is normal walking speed, that's normal running speed. Currently, the observation are lower walking and lower running. But I'm suggesting maybe we bump this up to be with the average, like the sprint should be at the average or the walk should be at the average. So, for example, you could go and make the observation. I guess so if you bumped up the walking speed, they'd walk as fast as they sprint, right? Unless you then compensated here. But if you just bump up the sprinting speed, it makes it so they're still slow, but when you push them, they go faster. That's way more logical. So yeah, let's do that. So let's bump up their speed. I think people are really going to like that. I'm thinking, by the way, do you guys have any thoughts on this? With the British, what if we applied the same observation speed to the British infantry? Because their morale is high, their stamina is decent, their reload's okay, their accuracy is high, and their melee and charge is okay. I wonder if the British should move slowly, but run fast as well. So that they seem more methodical. And that there's a more of a debuff to the British, or like slow and steady, or if we're happy with where they're at as a quality nation. Now keep in mind they only get 1,000 men per regiment, so they're pretty small as is. Maybe if they were less maneuverable, they'd get like picked off a little too easily. I'm not sure. Santiago says British are right now are the best in my opinion. What if the British did the opposite? What, they walk a little faster, but the issue is if you walk faster but run slower, now you walk as fast as you run, so that wouldn't really work. The other option is I could make the British run slower, so when you sprint them, they're a little less willing to get there. They could just get a slight sprint debuff. So look, they would go down like that. So sprinting isn't as efficient for the English. Maybe for the Highlanders, it stays the same. So the Highlanders you can sprint in. But perhaps the British don't run to position as quickly. Because they are very good. It would mean that the British need to use column more. When that's actually more of a French thing, actually. If we were going to do a debuff. But yeah, any thoughts on that, guys? Or should we leave it for the time being? Especially if there are any playtesters. I think Santiago's our only playtester still here, who could maybe give an opinion as well, based on experience. I need to jump into a call with someone real quick to explain something. Hey, Tom. There is a stratagem currently that does give you a speed buff based on how many horses you have in your inventory, but it doesn't work right now. So I think you may have built it, but it doesn't work right now. Yeah. Like someone tested it, and then I tested it, where he just debugged, gave himself 30 horses, and the movement speed was identical. So we have a couple options, I guess, of like, maybe we want to make this something that applies for everybody. So if you had a lot of horses, you could go fast.
Instead of the base value being like a 1, which is like a multiplier of 1 basically, you could just make a multiplier of 1.1 then as the default.
Yeah, so by default, if you just have horses in your inventory, you go faster. And then the stratagem increases that. Do you think that'd be too strong, though, if you're just outrunning, like, everything? Because I did balance everything around, like, you can outrun some things, but you can't outrun other things. I don't know if that would be too powerful or not. Like, I think it would only work if the AI played by the same rules, or if the AI had a cavalry composition they can run faster, like in Mountain Blade. But if you're the only one able to go faster, maybe it feels like you could just blitz everything and just run away from everything.
I personally like. I've never been a big fan of it. It's a little bit different for our game, but with Mountain Blade, it's like I just hate it mechanically how you could never catch armies because of the movement speed system. Whereas in our game, it's a nice constant. You always know you can outrun X armies if you do X, and you can't outrun like a HQ unless you've really managed to kite it somehow.
Okay, so should we just keep it the same for now? Like, just keep it by default and then leave that to be a stratagem exclusive, or potentially rework or change that stratagem that boosts?
I think as a stratagem exclusive, that's fine if someone wants to play into that.
Okay. Okay.
It could also be a, like a modifier in the future as well.
Okay, that seems fine to me. Yeah, okay. All right. Let's see what you guys said. Currently, the British are good, but maybe making their walking speed slower. They do have a good army comp that limits stamina as well. I think we could just keep them how they are at the moment. It doesn't seem like anybody really strongly feels any particular way about their movement speed. They are inherently more defensive, so I don't mind if they sprinted a little slower. But I'll just write that as a note for myself. I think I have to think on it more. Okay, yeah, I'll think on that more. I like what we did with the observation, though. I like that they can keep up now when they sprint, but their walking is a little slow. If we take, I'm just curious, if we take an observation musketeer, I feel like an observation musketeer should be able to beat a regular Russian volunteer in a just sitting there, slugging it out, firing at each other, shooting match. Or at the very least, they should end up being, it should be so close that you don't know who's going to win. Let me actually ask you guys, let's do a gladiator fight. Who do you expect to win, the observation corps infantry or a regular Russian musketeer infantry? Who would win a ranged combat? Who do you expect? And then we'll see what happens, and if we don't like the result, we can change the unit stats. I would imagine that observation should probably win because they're so slow that their only advantage is shooting. And so if we're talking about just shooting back and forth, I feel like the observation should win that, right? They're supposed to use cover. Correct. In this case, we're not going to use cover because the stratagem they have is not being applied. So they aren't getting the normal penalty that they get from standing out in the open. Okay. And let's just have them fight each other. So he killed 59, he lost 49, so he's already up on kills. The issue is the Russians have way higher manpower. So if we fast forward this, I'm guessing the observation might lose, in which case we'll want to bump up their accuracy, which I don't mind doing. It'd make this unit harder to fight against, but it's so slow, it's so easy to outmaneuver when the AI is using it, that if they got the accuracy buff, it wouldn't be that bad. Maybe they'll win, though. I mean, we'll see. They are racking up good kills, and that the kills will compound. It'll scare the enemy. Eventually, if you take a lot of losses suddenly, you get freaked out, and if they get freaked out, they're going to start nosediving in their stats. It looks like right now our observation musketeers are performing better by the looks of it. We've got 40 extra kills. The morale's about the same. What do we got? 42 morale to the enemy is 39. So we actually, I think we're close to winning this. So maybe we don't need to give him a buff, which would be nice because it means my stats are good, that I balanced it well. But let's see, it's a pretty close fight. Also, the morale bar is not hooked up on the UI, so let me go report that. .400 kills on 365. What's our morale at? 31 morale to their 30, but we're winded and they're fresh. So we're going to start losing a little bit of accuracy because we got tired quicker than they did. Who should get tired quicker, do you think? The Russian musketeer units or the observation corps? Who should be more likely to be tired? I guess the observation corps would, because they're designed right now to be defensive, and defensive means you're not used to moving a lot. It is kind of ironic because observation corps implies some kind of light agility, especially because they're not even wearing the heavy coats. But the way we're designing them as a faction is that observation corps are like the turtling group. Again, it's kind of ironic because as the turtles, they're missing the green shell. But yeah. Firing stamina while firing goes too fast. I don't know if I agree. Like, we're only winded. We're winded, and we've lost a third of our guys and half of our morale. I feel like that's justified to say you're winded from that. The enemy is not even... Oh, they just became winded. Russian musketeers should get tired quicker. I would probably agree with that. Who's winning now, though? Look, the casualties are catching up because we got tired before they did. So it's becoming quite even. I think if they got tired a little quicker, we would have won the fight. And I think the Russian musketeers are so overpowered right now because they're so sturdy that if they could run out of stamina, it would make their weakness... I think if they ran out of stamina quicker, it would mean that the Russians have really high morale, but when you fight them enough, eventually you can get them tired enough to run away. Or not even to run away, but that they become less effective. Because low stamina doesn't affect your morale. Low stamina just means you do less damage. So if you can grind the Russian down, they'll deal less and less damage. Kind of like a big bear. If you got the big bear tired and more tired and tired, it's not like the bear will run away, but it's just doing less. It's able to chase you less. And you're going to slow them down. So I think that's maybe what we'll do. Because the observation currently has lower stamina. I could invert the stamina so that the observation of higher than the... I feel like that makes sense that the observation of higher stamina, right? They're slower because when they find their spot, they stick to it and hold. But their stamina is good because they can outlast the enemy in a prolonged firefight, maybe. That's what's making them lose right now, is actually the stamina debuff. That's why they're going to lose this fight. So if I reverse it, let's just see what happens. So let's increase this all by 5. And decrease this all by 5. And now let's rerun this fight. I'm going to rebuild units. It's funny, the enemy actually just ran out of ammo. Because both sides have such high morale. Neither side left. And I also made the weapons less effective. So people are killing each other less. Let's just run it back again, though. How likely is the AI to mass charge your army? It's not very likely, but if you ran a bunch of skirmishers and they had a bunch of heavy infantry, they will be much more likely to just try to mass push you. I think because we just dumped everybody's accuracy down, though, like in that firefight, neither side ran because they weren't able to get enough kills. What we may need to do is bump up the morale loss from battles, since everyone's accuracy has gone down. But now let's run this fight back again. And I might bump up... I just hope I don't overcorrect it. Global morale damage modifier, lower to reduce the amount of morale damage received from gunfire. So I might bring that up if everyone's less accurate. So this way everybody does less kills, resulting in less accuracy, but then bring the accuracy loss or the morale loss back up so people run away just as much as they did previously, but they just don't die as much as they did, which I think is better because it means the battles still end with around the same pacing, but troops don't fight to the death nearly as much. I think that's probably a better thing. So we're going to go 0.65. And then what I can say is all units accuracy has been reduced by -5 except for artillery, and all muskets have reduced accuracy by -5 to compensate for lower kills. The morale loss from being shot at is now higher, so battles should see less people should feel slightly less bloody, but still be paced around where they used to be. What can you do about running out of ammo? Charge or run away? Yeah, there are supply wagons you can get. You can bring in supply wagons. There's also officers who can do an emergency resupply. You can charge, and the AI, when they run out of ammo, will charge you. If they've used every single bit of ammunition, they'll push you. Yeah. So they recognize army composition. That's awesome. Makes sense. They push light infantry. What it actually is, Toot, is it doesn't even look at the army composition. It doesn't really care what your formal designation is. In the same way that, like, a Panther tank was classified as a medium tank. But is a Panther tank really a medium tank? Is a Panther like a Sherman? No. And so a Sherman crew member would not engage a Panther as though it were a Panzer III medium tank, right? In this game, we do the same. So despite your designations, what the enemy will really do is they'll look under the hood and check your unit's melee stat and compare their own melee stat to it. And then they'll check how much ammunition they've spent and then consider, based on the distance of the unit, its melee stat comparison and its charge stat comparison, where the morale is at and how much ammo it's used if it wants to push you. So if there's a light infantry that you've stacked with really good bayonets and placements and done all these things to make them better in melee, maybe they won't push you. Maybe they will be a little bit scared of that. But if you've got a very vulnerable light infantry unit and they don't even have bayonets, they're going to go, oh, we're going to take advantage of that. So yeah, they are basically using decision-making that a player would do. Because a player wouldn't go, oh, light infantry, I'll charge it. They'll go, let me take a look. Okay, yeah, I think these stats aren't good. Okay, I can push them. So that's what the AI will try to do too. OH, Grenadiers charge from time to time. It's terrifying. Yeah, I increase the rate that the AI charges because when they charge, they feel scary, and I want to see that more often. It's rare to see them charge. So I've buffed it so that the AI will consider charging a little bit more now in the next update. All right, so what we can see from this fight is that we're both pretty much using the same amount of ammo. We both ran out. That my unit is lower morale than theirs. I think what we'll need to do... I've killed slightly more. I think what we'll need to do is bump up the observations accuracy slightly, because they're still slow as hell. So at least give them something. Who's got good accuracy for a recruit? We have a 40 accuracy recruit. A Grenzer's at 35. An Austrian's at 15. I think we're good to make the observation at 20. Because unlike a German recruit from Austria, the melee is way worse. Yep. The reload is about the same. The stamina is about the same as well. The morale is better on our surf recruit, but the speed is slower. So it actually makes them pretty equal in a way. But yeah, I think let's bump up their accuracy a bit. There. So the mainline Russian troops should be less exhausting to fight because of their stamina. Is not quite as high as it used to be. And the observation should run out of breath a little bit less and should put up a better fight in accuracy, but their melee is pretty bad. So I am happy with that change. Now let's go in and build core data, where I've now increased the morale penalty from being shot, because we just fought 1v1 and no one could break each other because they ran out of ammo. So if morale is now a bigger factor, hopefully they freak each other out a little bit more and get scared. Actually, let's go test it once I rebuild units, because I buffed the observation accuracy. Okay, I don't need those right now. And then let's run that test again. Let's run it again. Cool. Let's grab these guys, put them in 3 ranks. And the ranks really matter. You do not want to put them in any, like the width of the formation has a lot of implications. And most firefights, by the way, even if it's indecisive, most firefights in the game, you push each other, get close, or you flank. So even if this is not very decisive, that's okay, because no one's actually doing anything. Yeah, look at the morale loss they now suffer. They actually got big loss of morale properly. So that should already make this firefight better. And you can see we killed way more with the observation. But check out our melee is 23 and 17 charge. They have 26 and 19 charge. So if they pushed us, they could win. Especially because we have about the same morale, don't we? Is this stat not updating anymore, though? Look, this says 55. That's wrong. Yeah. So I'll just put that in the reports. And I should be able to win this now by breaking him. By breaking their morale. Damn, that morale's still really high, though. The Russians are scary in that way, that they just do not run. I don't know if I'll win this, but I did increase my accuracy, so I should at least rack up a lot more kills. I feel like my guys are burning through ammo, though, pretty quick. Like, more than usual. This seems odd that in just a few volleys I'm burning through this much ammo. So I might reduce the ammo consumption slightly. I don't really like how fast that is. We used half of our ammo. Yeah, it's a little too fast. But the results of this fight seem better to me. Like, the observation fusiliers are slightly winning this. And if the Russian musketeers wanted to, they could just push and win that fight through a charge. I do want to make sure, because we made accuracy lower, but the morale damage higher, I just want to make sure that the French Royal recruits don't break on the first shot, because their morale is so bad. So let's put them against the Cantonist recruits, and the Cantonist recruits should win, but it shouldn't be one shot and they win. It should be like a back and forth and then they break. In this particular case, I think my observation troops are winning. Damn, look how tiny we've got to get the morale to break. It's at that point there. I wonder what we should do about that. They have 55 morale. Is that true that they should have 55 morale? 55 for a musketeer. Most musketeers have 40, 50. 55 then seems okay. It's only 5 more than a Prussian. But they have a lot of men. And they're tired already, but I'm not tired, which is good, because their stats are going to be worse, but mine aren't. What I may do is now push up and try to close the battle. There, look at that. So if you just push up, now you can break them, because you get more into the red effective range. That's what the red gradient is the effective range of the musket. Does mean they're going to do a lot of damage back, but my expertise is in accuracy, so the closer we get, the even more accurate we are. Closer they get, I mean, they'll get a little more accurate, but it's not as extreme. So yeah, now I can actually win that battle with the observation fusiliers, and the Russian musketeers aren't quite as scary. So I like that result. I'm happy with that. The next thing I just need to see is to make sure I didn't overcorrect and mess up the balancing between the recruits. So let's go jump in and test them out. Okay. So, grab my recruits, put them in 3 ranks. The cool thing is I increase the range of the French men. So, the range that they can engage me at is larger. I'm going to put them like that. So that means I'll take a volley before I can hit them. So even though their morale sucks, at least they can get the first shot off. Really? Did I get my first shot off before them? Why is our range about the same? Oh, we both have worn muskets. That's why. We're not actually using... They don't have the Charleville yet. They're using the crappy version. Okay, well, that didn't seem bad. Look, I only did a little bit of morale damage. I'm going to close in, so we're not fighting at maximum range. And then I'm going to reload quicker than they will by like 5 seconds. So even though I ran up for a few seconds, that should be fine. We should reload at about the same time. They fire, and I should fire right back right around now. Good. Their morale is actually holding up pretty well because we're just not killing very many anymore. And I don't believe we reduced the accuracy of... No, we did reduce the accuracy of the recruits. We reduced the accuracy of everyone. So you can see they're actually holding pretty well, which is good for the Royal Recruits. Let's charge them, and let's see if melee feels too... I should actually lose this melee, because they have 21 and 18. I'm 12 and 14. So I'm pushing a numerically superior enemy on a frontal charge. I did a little bit of shock to them. I didn't get damaged much back in return, but I think if we look at our kills and losses, we're going to notice our casualties are going to go faster than our kills soon. They're about to eclipse them. Oh no, we're actually winning this. I think it's because their morale. Look, their morale's only 13, and mine's 21. So even though they have the melee, my morale is so much better than theirs at 35 versus 25 that's going to be the difference that helps me win the fight. Now, I'm tired before they were tired because I pushed the charge. So my melee skills fell even further. But I'll still win because of my morale. And I broke them. Okay, I think that's all right. I would have hoped for that to be a little closer. Like, it would have been nice if my Cantonist recruits went down a little bit further. Like, suffered maybe more of a penalty for a frontal charge. I am curious if I ran that test back and charged immediately, if no side shot, if we would win a melee if no one shoots. Because we did bloody them a little bit, and I wonder if we brought their morale down to a critically low point. Which nation has the strongest recruits? I think Britain does. I think Britain has the strongest recruits. So now let's do the same exact test, but nobody shoots. We just go in for a melee. And I'll charge them. And I would want to lose this, honestly. But I feel like I'm not going to lose it. I think their morale just sucks. Yeah. You can just see how fast we're tearing them down due to the morale advantage. Like, the kills are about the same, but the morale is so powerful there. But I am using Prussian recruits. Actually, not many people actually died on either side of that melee. It was kind of bloodless, which is fine, because the enemy would actually probably recover and come back. And so we would have only pushed the ground and they would have recovered. What if they charge me? Let's see. If they charge me, I think they should win. I would hope that that's the result because they have good charge. They have a good charge stat. One thing we can do is we could increase the French Royal recruits' melee abilities to make them feel like, what is a Hungarian recruit at? A Hungarian is at he's at 2025. A French Royal is at 2020. So what if we went 2025 and then the melee of a French Fusilier? Let's check what a Prussian is at. They're at a 20 and a 15. So it seems as though I typically give higher melee than I do charge to most people, except in specific cases. With the French, we want to make them slightly more aggressive, so they can be unique in that normally it's the other way, but in this case, you would get... Did I make that too high then? I could be making it too high in doing this, but... Let me just check something real quick. A Grenadier gets a 20 buff to their charge compared to a veteran. And I like the stats here. I think these probably shouldn't be... Yeah, hold on. I don't want to go ahead and make sweeping changes just yet. Let me go check. There's been some feedback. Let's see what the feedback is. French... No. Game balance. So between the 5 Grenadier options for the French, the Swiss are the most expensive, blah, 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 blah. The Germans are not hard to compare to the French, the 2 veterans, da, da, da. I think the Swiss should have the reload increased and stamina increased since they're the most professional troops. For the German, I'd reduce the veterancy needed for them from 4 to 3. Okay. Also, I don't think there's a reason to go for the other Grenadiers outside the voluntaries. Their stats are overtuned for a 5 veterancy compared to the other parts. The morale should be dropped. I was puzzled by the upgrade cost and the low numbers of the Swiss. I believe the Irish Grenadiers and most foreign Grenadiers are underwhelming, but especially German. Okay. Well, let's go just test this real quick. But it could be nice if the French... let's have them charge. If the French feel sturdier in melee so that you can't just mass charge this wall of troops, even if they do have low morale, that they can still bloody you. And in this particular case, we hit them. Wow, look at that. So whoever gets the initial charge off is getting a massive advantage, it seems. Like, look at that. So we lost 180 to 50. So that charge, I wonder why that is. I wonder why that happens. Whoever is charging is just getting this big advantage. But that's odd to me. I don't know why that is. Hey, Tom. You there, Tom? Hello, hello.
Hello. Hello.
Hey, Tom.
Hey.
I found something interesting that in the game currently, whoever charges first pretty much wins a melee regardless of almost anything else. So I'll put this in dev discussion. These are the results I got when a royal recruit charged a Cantonist recruit. They just completely decimated them. When I did the opposite and the Cantonist recruit charged the royal recruit, it was the exact same result, just inverted. So basically the Cantonist destroyed the royal recruit. Regardless of the stats are actually, there's a 2 times disparity in the melee stats. Like the royal recruits have a 20 melee stat to the Cantonist 10. So they're 2 times better. And there's also 1,600 of them compared to only 1,200 Cantonists. So the royal recruits have a massive advantage when it comes to double the melee skill and way more bodies. But whoever charges first wins no matter what, by far. Like, it's not even close. Like, if you look there, the Cantonists are getting decimated. If I do that result the opposite way, the same thing happens. And I wonder what's going on that initial advantage in the charge impact is just compounding, and the morale just flies down from that point on. It's almost as though like the charge damage is staying and stacking with the melee damage or something. But I don't know why it's worked. I'll also take a screenshot showing the opposite of the.
I mean, the slider is also lerping. It could not just. We need a. Do we have it in the tooltip? The morale.
Yeah, I kept it. I've kept it paused. Compared the two morale stats. Unpaused. I've been going through with a live stream, and we're just like comparing the stats. But
Mm-hmm.
I'm not like fast forwarding through it and just kind of like eyeballing it. But I'll charge the opposite units and then see the result of that. Okay. So it's not identical, but if I charge him, I decimate the morale. And I still lose a decent amount. But whoever charges wins. Now you
Aren't the
get,
morale of these units like 30 though?
yeah, both sides' morale is pretty low, like 30 each.
Because like the problem, what I'm saying is, imagine this slider was representing a morale of 100. This would look huge, but if this slider is representing morale at 30, this could be the difference of 5 morale. No.
Yeah, yeah. Like right now, well, the two units in that screenshot, I have it paused. The French Royal Recruit is at 10 morale. The Prussian is at 22 morale.
Okay. And then what was the inverted result?
I don't know the numbers off the top of my head. I can check
I
them.
would write down the numbers because like looking at these sliders is like way disproportionately
Yeah.
hard to judge.
Okay. So the result on the other one, so French morale is 19. So yeah, they're almost complete inversions of each other based on who charges first, is getting a 10 morale difference. The impact of the charge is like very small. It's like the person who gets hit loses maybe 2 or 3 points of morale. It's not as though the initial impact is resulting in somebody losing 5 or 10 and then creating that initial disparity which stacks. It seems as though the impact isn't too felt, but then the morale just starts plummeting once the melee starts on whoever got charged. As though the charger is just continuously getting some kind of bonus, but I'm not sure. I could be making that up, but it's just interesting how much it stacks.
The charge is only given once.
Charge what?
The charge only activates once.
Yeah. I'm curious if they both charge each other at the same time as well, what happens? All right, let's see if they both go at each other. Who wins it? So they both did morale damage to each other. And they're now both going down quickly. And I think the Prussian might lose it due to the numbers. The French are killing a lot more. And the Prussian loses it. But notice they were both going down an equal amount. Yeah, that seems like the correct result, that the French should slightly win that. Now I'm curious, this charge morale damage modifier. If this was set to 1, so there's no charge damage modifier, and I rebuilt the core data, and we test what happens, it just feels as though there is some hidden modifier wherein the person who charged is getting a continuous advantage beyond the initial impact, whereas the charge should be giving somebody that initial push, and then it comes down to your melee skill. But that doesn't feel like what's happening right now. It seems like whoever gets the charge off just has this inherent advantage from that point on, which I don't like. So I'm just trying to figure out. Now this is with no charge damage modifier. So now the result was when the... Who do we want to charge? This was a more interesting result. So the Prussian will charge the French now. And let's see if we get the same result as we got last time. What's the initial impact now? It still did a good initial impact. That still pushed it down. So even though I made this value 1, I still did a good initial impact. Let's see if it just if I continue with the advantage. Okay, this is interesting. This is now quite interesting to me because I think we may have discovered, maybe we discovered what went wrong. You guys tell me. Look, this is a much different result, right? That here, the Royal Recruit is at the same strength, same morale, but the Cantonist in the old version barely lost any morale. Now he's losing a bunch of morale. All because I took the charge morale damage modifier and brought that down to 1, so there's no charge damage modifier. Which I think should stay at 1. Because what I think that 0.35 was doing was multiplying the additional morale damage you're doing whilst in the melee because you charged. Whereas now this is a much closer fight. In fact, with this change, I would imagine that had the French got a volley off, just a single volley before the Prussians made impact, the Prussians would lose, which to me would be the desirable effect because the French, their only saving grace, what is that in French? Coup d'éclat, roughly, is their melee. So my desired result is that should the Prussians blindly charge this position, that they get hit, let's say around, no, they shot, are you kidding me? Okay, well, you know what? They shoot and then they charge, and the French return fire, let's say around here. Wow, okay. Well, that would make a big difference. And if they try to close in now, I don't think they're going to make it. Yeah, but look how close that was. That had I not made that change, the Prussians still would have won, which doesn't seem right, right? Like, I think this result feels good. The other cool thing about this result is these guys are going to come back. Look, if we fast forward, they will reform. So they're going to run away. They'll get tired. And look, they reform. So I like that you can reform and try to fight back now. One very interesting thing to me that I'm just noticing now is that they reformed despite them not even getting the morale here. Let's take a look at this one more time. What I need to see here is that how come the Prussians came back even though their morale wasn't high enough to come back. Let's test it. The necessary amount that they need is supposed to be 20 in order to recover from a retreat. You need 20 morale. Let's see if that's correct. I get shot in the back. I'll stand even closer and get shot in the back again. We'll get shot one more time in the back. I retreat. I am at 10 morale. 11 morale. Let's also make sure the general's not nearby enough to... Yeah, he's way far away. Right? So he needs 20 morale to recover. He's only at 11. 12. 13. 14. 15. 15 he recovers. Aha. So... let's have Tom investigate. OH, you said something's going wrong. I fought 5 stalkers in a row. Are you saying they just spawned back to back to back? They're just like constantly spawning really quickly? Or what are you saying? I'm on day 132 and the headquarters is not mobilized. Yeah, that's also incorrect. And you keep fighting stalkers. Yeah, that's weird. Do you want to... Oh, wait, do you want to report that in the bug report? Maybe you could take a video and just keep retreating. Just drop a save. And then just keep retreating from them over and over again until your army dies. But, well, you're saying you destroy one and then it respawns, right? So you can't really take a video. I don't know how to pronounce your name, but you ask why decrease the accuracy of troops and the muskets, leave one untouched. I would like to decrease both because the numbers are just so extreme. It's far too extreme that I'm unhappy with it. That the troops are, like, if I just show you some people's endgame stats, they're breaking the let's see if anybody's posted their end stats. I don't know if anybody's posted it. Like this one here. Highest accuracy, 105. They have 105 accuracy. Like 100's pretty much the max. So I just don't think you should be getting up to that amount. Look at the charge, 165 charge. Like a lot of these numbers are way too high. Accuracy, or morale is fine. I've actually not touched morale. Morale's the only stat I haven't touched. Melee and charge I reduced for everybody. And then I also reduced the accuracy. And reload I didn't touch. Reload's fine as well. So, yeah, that's the problem at the moment. It's just too high. And then when you do that, I mean, look, you kill 14,000 people and you only lost 35,000. Actually, you killed 134,000. Holy shit. That's insane. That's interesting. This is an interesting bug too, or not an interesting bug. There's something that someone brought up. Someone mentioned that the current objective is to probe encounters, but they thought probe was a funny word because it makes you think of like what aliens do when they probe humans. So is there a better way to what verb that you would do for encampments if there were like enemy encampments around the region, what you would do to take them on? You could secure convoys, raid settlements, dismantle slums, reinforce outposts, secure battlefields, secure settlements. I use secure a lot. I could use secure encampments, but scout encampments, that's not bad. Scout though implies a bit more of like it's a bit more of like an irregular action. Dismantle, screen, those are good words. Encircle, I don't like. I don't know. I'm gonna pee and you guys think. I'll come right back. Okay. Destroy, occupy, eviscerate. Secure encampments. I would say you siege forts. Secure a battlefield. I think secure is fine. Or is fine. I might just do secure. It's a word I use for a lot of things. I think that's okay. Did you add the bug report about the stalker armies? Yeah, I don't know what's going on here. The cover's like broken right now, where it's giving you cover when it shouldn't. I don't know what to do about that right now. I don't see the bug report, OH. I'm not seeing it. Are you putting it in the bug report channel, or are you putting it somewhere else? Okay, there it is. And let's check the... Okay. Um, 2 patrols in the exact same settlement. Yeah, I don't know. That's odd. I don't know. Okay. What's the next thing we need to do? So I went down a rabbit hole there. This seems fine. That seems okay. We just finished observation. So we are on points number 4 and 5 to finish unit balancing. The British are very strong. Everybody seems okay with that, though, because there's so few of them. Highlanders, I like where they're at because they have high morale, just like a British Grenadier, but they've got better stamina and they're fast. They've got great charge damage, so these guys are just very good, but they don't have the accuracy. They have decent reload. I may actually bring down the reload a little bit. I feel like the reload's too high because they have such high stats everywhere else. So I'm going to go 20 and 15 and 30 and 35. Sorry, not the accuracy can stay high. I'm actually okay with that. I think just the reload should go lower. I'll just note that down. And then let's check the Irish. They're at 15 and 10. They're really bad at reloading. I think that's fine though for now. They're just slightly lower than the Scottish. That's okay. Germans are okay. I'm okay with the Jaegers. Brunswick is in a weird spot. Brunswick is an odd spot currently because you look at a Hessian. Brunswick is faster. Morale is identical. Stamina is about the same. Reload's worse. Accuracy is worse. And melee and charge are the same. So what exactly is the point of getting a Brunswicker? The Brunswicker is supposed to... They're lower value by a lot. They're actually much lower value. And they're much cheaper, aren't they? I never use Brunswicker. If they upgrade into a Jaeger, I almost want to just give them a little bit of a specialization in accuracy. If the Hanoverian's at 20 and the Hessian's at 15, if these guys were at 25 and a Jaeger is at 30, now they're more in line. And the reload's bad. Maybe that's okay. But they're accurate. They're more accurate now by a lot. And they can still put up a good charge. Perhaps even better than a Hessian. Which is nice. But I don't want to buff them up. And they're fast. They're faster, which is good. Because they're eventually going to turn into a Jaeger who's even faster. Maybe up their cost a little bit. I could up their cost just slightly. 450. French Fusilier. Well, they're definitely worse than a French Fusilier. I think 450 is fine because I think their cost was not even reflective. I think they were just underperforming, so I don't need to change their cost. They just were worse. So the accuracy is now better than both a Hanoverian and a Hessian. But they can charge. So I guess they're like kind of a cool hybrid where you can shoot pretty well with them and charge. So maybe that's just a bit better. And their morale should be lower. 45 is actually pretty high as it is. Yeah, they're kind of a jack of all trades. I like that. I could even be convinced to give them the 15 reload. So it's at least as good as a recruit. Yeah. Because otherwise they're just bad. So at least they have kind of a... Like, they're okay at shooting and charging. And they have good morale. So it just makes them pretty good at everything, but they're not really exceptional in anything. Their stamina is quite nice, which prepares them nicely to eventually become Jaegers. So, yeah, I'll leave them at that for now. I'm okay with the British. 60 morale is kind of nuts, isn't it? 60 morale is a little nuts. They have 65 up here, though. Yeah, I think that's okay. What's the difference between British and subsidy artillery? I think I modeled subsidy artillery to be identical to Prussian artillery. I think it's basically just Prussian artillery that you can get as Britain. So let's check. Like, less accurate, 35 compared to 40. Faster reload, 30 compared to 15. So 30 and 35. And check the Prussian, 30 and 35. Yeah, they're basically just like Prussian artillery that you can get as Britain. And they just fire a little faster. Yeah. I'm happy with this. Let's look at the French here. The French are in a weird kind of position at the moment. I'm going to open them up on the unit tree because they've got so many units all in one tree. I would just want to look at everything cohesively. And then once we finish the French, we're done with unit balancing for now. Okay. So, I do like the graduated values 2, 3, 4. This is nice. 2, 3, 3, 4, 4, 4. Ah, that's interesting. They go 4, 4. Because the Swiss are supposed to, that's 8 veterancy. So yeah, this should be well worth it. 60 morale, 40, 50, 60. So they have the same 60 morale, but only 800 men versus 1,000 men. 30 and 20, 30 accuracy, 20 reload. 30, 20 versus 30, 10. So the reload's much worse. The melee in charge is 30, 30, 50, 35. So way better charge. It's mainly the men. But this only costs 5 veterancy, where this cost 8. So I feel like I would want something a little bit better on the Swiss. I feel like the Swiss should seem a little scarier, maybe. Now let me read what the players said first before I start making things up. And I'll take notes on what the playtesters said. So what the playtesters said... So between the 5 Grenadier options, the Swiss are the most expensive at 8. Yep. And they don't feel as good as they should for the amount of hassle. That's what I was just thinking. Germans are hard not to compare to the French. They're 2 veterancy more and only have 10 higher morale and 5 extra accuracy for lower numbers and melee stats. Well, I already changed the Germans. What I've done to the Germans, I also gave them 5 extra reload. So they have extra reload, extra accuracy, and extra morale now. So I think the Germans are in an okay spot. Let me check something real quick. Cost 4 by default. Yeah. The Germans are in an okay spot. I think the Swiss should have their reload increased from 20 to 35. Let's go check. The Swiss reload is 25. I wouldn't go much higher because, look, the idea is that the Germans fill that niche where they're a unit that has got good reload. I don't want the Swiss to take that niche. I like that the Germans have a purpose now. So I don't want to remove that purpose. I'm going to keep them the same. And the stamina from 50 to 55. I'm cool with the stamina change. We can make them have as much stamina as the Irish. That's okay. Because they're way more expensive, so it shouldn't be less. Since they're the most professional. I agree. For the German Grenadiers, I'd reduce the veterancy. I don't really think so. I'm not going to do that. I would not mind if they had 65, if they had higher morale, 55 and 65. Who's got higher? So they're as good as the Highland. I feel like they should be better than the Highlanders. Russian Grenadier. I could even be convinced to give them 70 morale, but it feels like we're getting a little bit dangerous by doing that. It would make them fight to the death, but that's kind of what they did, didn't they? I'm a little afraid of doing that. If anything, I think there's some units that have... Well, look, the French Royal Cavalry have 70 morale. If there's any unit that should get 70, I feel like this would be pretty impressive. 50, 60, 40, 50, 60, 70. That 70 morale would make them the highest morale infantry in the game, which I like. I like that. And the Swiss Guard is modified on that +5. So the Swiss Guard now has 75 morale. So that's pretty cool. Like, these guys would be trusted with their lot. You pretty much are, they're like your old guard. Like, they would fight to the death for you, which is pretty cool. And the voluntaries, I feel like, are probably overpowered. Let's look at them. They're pretty cheap to get, right? Yeah, the upgrade cost is 2 for the Fusiliers and then 3, so it's only 5 to get there. Whereas to a regular one is also 5. Okay, so it's equal to get to a regular. So they should be similar to a French Grenadier. Historically, they'd be high morale, high accuracy. I think that's what they do. That's what they do have. Look, they have the highest accuracy. 20, 25, 20, or sorry, 25, 30. I could go higher and go 30, 35. 35 accuracy isn't even impressive, by the way. Well, I keep remembering. I have to keep remembering I decreased everybody's accuracy by 5. So I'm saying, oh, 35 is not impressive. Now it is, because everybody came down. But if German Grenadiers are at 30 accuracy, the Swiss definitely should be at 35. Yeah. So these guys should kick some ass now. Decent accuracy. Okay, melee and charge. Extremely high morale. Good stamina. This should be worth getting now. Okay. Now I want to look at what role the voluntaries serve. The voluntaries, to me, voluntaries Grenadiers should be similar to a Grenzer Grenadier. So what I want to do is grab a Grenzer Grenadier and put them next to each other and model them after them. But I think the voluntaries Grenadier should have better melee. Let's see. So they both go at the same speed. They both have the same morale. Grenzer's got more stamina, which I like. Same reload. The Grenzer has way better accuracy. And the voluntaries has better charge. And they have more numbers. So they're actually pretty equal because of that number difference and then the accuracy advantage. So that's not bad. Now, would I get a voluntaries over a regular French Grenadier? Let's see. I miss out on 400 men, which is huge. I have way less charge in melee. I have the same accuracy pretty much and the same reload. I have pretty much the same stamina. I have slightly higher morale, and I'm faster. So I probably would not get the voluntaries, right? Between Santiago and OH, do you guys agree that the voluntaries are probably a little weak in this case? A voluntaries Fusilier is at 30 accuracy. A Grenzer Fusilier is at 40 accuracy. They have 1,000. They have 1,200. Yeah, that's fine. What would we want to do? They should be an accurate counterpart. That's what I'm thinking. They should probably... Maybe they get Swiss accuracy. Or even better than the Swiss accuracy. Which... Yeah, that would make them very good. What's a British Grenadier at? 55. Yeah, that's nuts. But there's only 800 of them, that's why. I think if the voluntaries are 30, so it's 5 more than that and 5 more than that, then the Grenadier should be at 5 more than that, which they are, 10 more than that, which they are. The morale's good. They seem most comparable to the Germans at this rate here. Same exact reload. They're faster. Better accuracy. Way worse melee. Huge drop off in the melee. 30 and 35. Yeah, still lower. Better accuracy, though. Worse reload. Better stamina. Same morale. And faster. I don't know. The voluntary Grenadier does not seem horrible to me. It's a 3. and 2. So how much would this cost to do? 2, 3. So that'd be 5. Or go German, and that's going to cost 7. But they seem almost equal. So if anything, this guy's actually pretty powerful. Let's check what a Prussian Grenadier is at in reload. They're at 35. What's a German Grenadier here at? 35. So yeah, they have Prussian. They go down and reload. Okay. Everybody goes down and reload, yeah. I don't really know. I'd up the reload for the chasseurs. I could. It's at 35. What's like a Russian Pandor is at 25, yeah. And a Austrian Jaeger is at 25. So if anything, they actually have better reload than all of them. I don't really know if I need to change anything. I think the one thing that's maybe ignored by you guys, which you shouldn't ignore, is this movement speed's actually kind of ridiculous. They're getting chasseur movement speed, which I'm not even sure if that's intentional. Like, that actually might be an oversight. Because it should be, look, 25, 35, 25, 35. It's supposed to be 5 faster than the infantry. 35, 40. Yeah, I think the chasseur is supposed to be faster. Let's check. A Jaeger is 30, 40. No, yeah, they're just fast as fuck. What's a Grenzer at? 30, 40. 35, 45. Why is a... Okay, because it's a hybrid. Yeah. Well, what's a Jaeger's 30, 40? Yeah, Voluntary's Fusilier goes as fast as a Jaeger. I don't know. These guys actually seem fine because they're fast as hell, the Light Corps. I guess I'll leave them at that for now. Like, it seems a little bit strange, but at least they have a niche, I guess. It's really hard. There's so many numbers and so many goddamn units. It's really hard to, like... Because if you make one... Everything's... You know, if you put this at 40, it's now equal to the... You can't just, like... There's no, like, 42.5 or something like that. All the numbers are a little hard to get to work. It's a lot. It's a lot of balancing. You're saying, though, that the regular French Grenadiers are overpowered, right? What is the overpowered part of them? The morale seems fine. I mean, that 40 morale for a Grenadier is not that good. Like, that's below almost everybody. They have very weak morale. They come with a lot of guys. And that's good charge damage for... Yeah, that's better charge damage than almost any other Grenadier. But the morale sucks. And 20 reload, 25 accuracy. Let's check like an Austrian. Better reload and worse accuracy. I could be convinced to make them a little bit more, a little less good in their best melee stats and the most men in the Grenadier unit. Yeah, that is maybe an issue. That is maybe an issue. Because the number can't be discounted. That number is, this is the highest size Grenadier unit in the game. So I'd say it should probably more match what a Russian is at. And a Russian is at 35, 45. Maybe we'd reduce... If this was 35, 40, that's not as bad anymore, right? It's mainly the morale that's going to cause their problem, because, you know, you get a Swiss one or a German one, you've got 50 or 70 morale, or even Irish is 60. So your morale is the big thing. And then if you get voluntaries, you get the 50. But now this is a little more balanced. Yeah, now if we check the voluntaries, it's still worse, but it's quite close. Yeah. Yeah, the French actually have a lot of Grenadiers to choose from, so it's a little hard to make them all balanced. Okay, I think this balance pass is done for now. So this was the medium hard and reality hard big balance pass we did. We changed a lot. So I think for now, we have to let things sit for a while and feel them out before the next changes can come. Because if we keep changing, especially if we're doing changes based on what the playtesters are playing now, which is the old version, we're going to mess all of our numbers up. So we got to leave everything the same. I do have to walk my dog. I do have to walk my dog. And I think we did half our list. Gosh, what do I really wanted you guys to see the items, though. I really wanted to dive into the items. Maybe we save the items, or I'll do them myself. Okay, before I leave, let me take some notes before I go. Before I go, let me get your opinion, Santiago and OH, before I leave. With the items, real quick, how do you guys feel about number one? I'm just going to ask you a couple questions, and then I'll balance them on my own. Number one, items to have less extreme effects. Like, there's some that just seem extreme. Of course, I can balance, like, there's some items where the cost doesn't make sense. Like an item costing less and giving you a big buff compared to another item costing more and less of a buff, right? Those are just mistakes, right? So I think this one is obvious. We know we should do this. This, I don't know, the extreme effects. I don't know if you like to make everything subtle, like a little bit more subtle. I think I'd be more in favor of that, because some like the spirit rations are like, what, plus 18 charge or something like that. It's just too much, right? And then the other thing is more trade-offs. What if you had items that gave you something somewhere and then debuffed something else slightly? Like, I think that maybe be more interesting when you're making a build. Because right now it's like, how many buffs do I want to stack to make this unit just good at everything? Whereas if every little bonus, let's say it looked like this. Like every little bonus came with a small downside now and then. This probably looks better. And then maybe the ones that just give a bonus are just a little more subtle, but there's no downside, right? So you have like 2 of these that give a tiny bonus and no downside, but if you want a really big bonus, you got to give something up. I think they should be like coffee, a strong buff with a small, yeah. So you guys say, and I agree with that. So like coffee is a good example of a trade-off item. This should be applied to all stratagems. Some are still OP, yeah. We'll do stratagems next week. What I'm doing for now is I'm letting Monkey Man go in and organize the playtesters to test all of the stratagems and then give them a rating based on power level. And you guys are free to contact Monkey Man if you want to participate, but you have to test if something works and then say if it's overpowered or not, or underpowered, and then we can make adjustments. This should all be tested and filled in by the end of the week, and then next week I can tackle balancing it. But I don't want to jump into this while it's being tested. The only other question I have for you guys before you go is how do you there are some items. Do you guys feel like there's enough items that boost accuracy? I feel like there's only 3 items in the game that actually give you accuracy. And I also wonder, would you be okay with certain items being abstracted to just give you something even if they don't seem like they should? This is a bad example, and maybe you guys can shoot this down, but I was thinking like a Bible and a cross pendant kind of do the same thing right now. But what if like a cross gave you morale plus charge damage slightly? Kind of like if you think of like a zealot in Warhammer or in the Crusades historically, you think of zealots as like wearing religious attire and running into battle without any care, right? Like if you were to say the 2 things that make a zealot, you would say high spirit and just the effort to go in and just charge in. And so wearing the cross around your neck maybe gives you that. So it makes it a little more unique. And then like a Bible could just be like a big morale buff or just a straight up morale buff with no other bonus. what if an accuracy, should it give anything else though? Like, would it be weird if a Bible also gave like a little bit of accuracy? Would that be a weird thing? Because it's like, wait, why is that? And I'm wondering if there's a way to give it to more items. Oh, the cross accuracy buff is like Saving Private Ryan, where the sharpshooter kisses the cross before every shot. That's funny. Like God is with you in each shot. That would be funny. Like, these are 2 cheap items, so it'd be interesting if each of them gave opposite effects. So they're like the way you start to create a build. Where like, oh, I want to lean into melee, I'm going crosses, or I'm leaning into accuracy, I'm going Bibles, or vice versa. But do you guys just prefer Bibles just being a stronger morale buff, and then crosses being a little bit of morale and a little bit of charge, or something like that instead? I'm just thinking, what else can give accuracy in the game? Because there's only 2 or 3 items of like the 80 that give accuracy, and it's a little bit... You get a marksman, like a Tompion, and T, I guess. I don't know. Okay, well that's about it. I'm gonna go redo my... You'd love Tompions and gun... I like that Tompions and gun picks are mutually exclusive, because they are both kind of the same type of thing you'd carry with you. And I like that you have to make a choice. I like sacrifices. Right now, Tompions and gun picks are the only 2 weapon tool categories. So they're only mutually exclusive with each other. If they weren't mutually exclusive with each other, what category would they be put in with? Oh, that is a funny point, Jaden, about fire damage received bonus. If you wear a Bible, it reduces the fire damage. Either God's protecting you or the Bibles are stopping the bullets. So I've got to put that in. That's so funny. I have to do that. What if I also did this? Just out of curiosity. Another last question. If you had like a basic Bible, a good Bible, an excellent Bible, my 2 questions are, should it be like +2 morale, +4 morale, +6 morale? Or like I would do what Jaden said and it would stay. Ignore the number. The number is just placeholder. This could be 5 or 10 or whatever. Just ignore that. But would it be like +2 morale plus fire damage receive bonus? And then, or like maybe that's the excellent quality. And then the good quality would just be like the +4 morale. Like, would it be cool if excellent gave like something unique about it? I guess the issue with that though is what happens if there's an item. This is maybe a more important question. What happens if there's an item where a certain horse gives you +5 charge and -5 accuracy? Let's say that's a basic horse. If there's a good and an excellent version, what happens to the debuff? Do you guys like that the buff increases and the debuff increases? So you have to make, it's like high risk, high reward. You're leaning into it. Or do you like that the debuff would go away if it was excellent? But if it went away, in order to counterbalance that, what we would have to do is we would have to make the bonus less potent. So you like that the debuff increases as well? I think I do too, because it means you have to like think about it maybe more. The other thing would be like you'd only get +6 charge, but then the accuracy would go down like that. And maybe there you get like +8 charge, and now you only lose a little bit of accuracy. Yeah, maybe the accuracy thing wouldn't scale, so it'd be more like -8 and then -11 or something like that. Which of those do you guys prefer? Like a slight increase on buff and then you slowly get shed of the debuff, or a larger increase on buff but you have to take a sacrifice somewhere else? That's been an interesting thought of mine that I'm unsure where I lean. Yeah, I guess the third option would be that the debuff stays the same the whole time. I'll say or does debuff stay the same? I can make it a poll in the playtesters thing. Yeah, I can ask the playtesters. Let me just get rid of this crap. I love the morale giving the fire damage received bonus. That's funny as hell. Okay, I noted that for myself. That's it then, guys. I'll let you go. Thank you, and I will see you later. Thanks for the stream, and I'll get balancing the items when I get back today, and we'll have balanced the guns, balanced the units, and balanced the items. That's a good amount of progress for today. It's only Tuesday, right? So we're chipping away at the balance. Then we'll eventually have to do AI army comps and loot, and then when we do that, regions 2 and 3 should start feeling a lot better. And I've already fixed the encounter loot, I'm pretty sure. It should already be better now, so that shouldn't be as overpowered.